пам'ятаю нашого полі, я полкового знамена, дивлюсь на нього я востаннє, у нез'ясованій журбі, всю кров мою всі скидання, воно вібрало у собі.
Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння, різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів. Робить примар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар. Байрактар. Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And welcome back to the stream, everyone, on day 242 of the news. And man, is that not a classy anthem or what?
And is it or is it not? Let us know in the live chat. And of course, a lot of y'all have come here tonight for the news. And not just any news, but probably the biggest news of this war so far, even larger than the northeastern offensive of a month and a half ago. The Russians have now declared that their armed forces are retreating from Kherson, and the Ukrainians are rolling forward practically unopposed as the Russian army streams across the Dnipro River back to the southern banks, and Kherson will be Ukraine's in a matter of days. It is happening right now as we speak. Even the Russians have admitted on pro-Russian propaganda channels that the Russian armed forces are in the middle of the largest retreat in this entire war's history, and they are pulling this off days before the actual Ukrainian counteroffensive was supposed to begin. It is unbelievable. It's unprecedented in this war, and of course, we'll be covering everything about that right here, right now. Starting off with Russian news first, that speaks directly about Kherson. Now, a lot of y'all may remember that Russian propagandists used to make up a pretty decent segment of the show. We would show them and take a good laugh at them. So I'm going to go back to a clip from several months ago. In fact, just about a month or two into the war, and let's see what one of our favorite propagandists said then. The subtitles will probably be cut off for y'all, and so I will have to read it all for y'all, but this is what this propagandist said at the very beginning of this war. And so here's the video. Oleg Anatolievich, we all know the benefits of conquering Odessa, just like we all know the benefits of taking Kyiv. Or at least Mykolaiv. But first, the liberation, of course. It would be a good start to get settled in Artemovsk, which is Kherson, and even better not to lose Kherson, at least. And so then, of course, it plays the usual meme music that we cannot play because it's copyrighted. But isn't that funny words? They said, let me go back and read that for y'all. An even better start to not lose Kherson, at least. Well, 6 months later, Kherson is being lost as we speak. So let's go down here real quick to the city of Kherson, and let's read this tweet from the Wagner Twitter page. From Wagner Twitter page. No other, I mean, like, this should be where the propaganda is coming from. But let's read this here. Let's see. How can we just take and leave territory of Russia? And that is why I grit my teeth strongly. I do not exclude that some troops will remain on the right bank, which will become modern Pamfilovs, and the battle will be presented almost like Stalingrad. That doesn't sound like positive talk from the Russians anymore. They're now saying, oh man, we're going to lose it all, but at least there will be a couple of guys in Kherson that will be fighting like it's Stalingrad. That is a loss. And especially since the Russians don't even have the supplies to keep these soldiers fed or even clothed once the winter arrives, that is pretty much a loss already. An admittance of one right there. Moving on into the next tweets, we can of course see it put down right here. This is an English translation of the original tweet. And we can see even further down here, the enemy has absolutely no motive to blow up the hydroelectric power station. The armed forces of Ukraine have an order to take Melitopol in the spring. The front of the battle for it is planned to be opened in the Zaporizhia region, and also, in fact, to attack from Kherson. And so we can already see that they were planning to lose even more ground, and this is a Russian propagandist, Wagner affiliated, that is talking about, yeah, we're going to lose Kherson, and we're probably going to be losing a whole bunch of other towns in the south when spring comes around. They have already, it's already over. It's a said and done fact, and it's become a reality amongst the Russians and the Ukrainians that the Russians are in full rout. As far as we know right now, there are hundreds of Russian soldiers flowing over the remaining bridges over the Dnipro River, and with them, they are carrying only their own souls within the tatters and clothes that they wear, and leaving behind the arms and ambitions of a Russia that has ceased to exist at this point in history. Never again will the Russian Federation be able to say that they can invade a country confidently with their military, because now we can see them being openly defeated before a counteroffensive even begins. Moving on to some clips outside of the city of Kherson, we've seen that they are apparently constructing some kind of a Siegfried line somewhere in this area. And I gotta say, I don't think that's going to do them all too well. I don't know about you, Matthew, but some concrete spikes in the middle of a field probably won't pose too much of a problem, considering that they won't even be there for a long time.
Exactly.
So that's their best attempt. Some concrete triangles or pyramids, and that will stop the Ukrainians, according to them. Moving on to the frontline news, which there's been a massive load of today, we're going to start off on the highest note possible. We have seen another Ka-52 get shot down in the Kherson region today. And so, of course, here's the video of that impressive little feat that the Ukrainians pulled off just a few hours ago. We can see the Ka-52s flying over the fields. We can see them now spinning around and flying off. And much like the Russian armed forces on this side of the Kherson River, they will not fare well either. We can see that second Ka-52 making its sharp left turn as best it can. The Ka-52 is flying a little too high. Y'all will see that that becomes important later on in the video. That's called foreshadowing. We can see the Ka-52s continuing to trek their way back across the fields. And of course, these are Russia's finest. Russia's best helicopters. They are flying tanks. At least that's what they told us before the war. It's impossible to shoot them down. A Stinger or an anti-air missile would be very hard posed to shoot one down in one shot, right? I mean, like, that's what the Russian Ministry of Defense has been telling everyone. Matthew, don't. You're spoiling it.
I couldn't hold it back.
Oh, well, I can't blame you. I mean, like, these Ka-52s have been flying around for a little too long in this video, and the Ukrainians have noticed that as well. That Ka-52 is still defiantly flying over the fields. We can also see a Russian Mi-17 further in the background. We now see the Ka-52 moving further and further to the left side of the screen where my mouse is, and a missile comes flying in, slamming into the Ka-52, and sending it down to the fields below. When you see that one of the pilots ejected, the black billow of smoke, the smoke of death rising up from the field, another one of Russia's rare Ka-52s has been destroyed in the Kherson region as their armed forces retreat right below them. The Mi-17 now appears to be hovering over a tree line right near where that one was shot down. Not really a good move on the Mi-17's part. The other Ka-52 appears to now be orbiting where that Ka-52 is now crashed. We don't know where the pilot that ejected has landed. It looks like he almost fell directly into the plume below. So we'll have to see. We can now see this Mi-17 landing, and luckily enough for that pilot, this Mi-17 was close enough to literally pull off the rescue operation within seconds of the helicopter going down. We now see the other Ka-52 popping its flares, and the smoke still rising from the field. Another defeated Ka-52. Another loss for Russia. That is irreplaceable. With that, that's the end of the video, and as this camera zooms out onto these great fields of the Kherson region, one can only imagine how many Russian forces at that very moment in this film, across this entire field of view, were retreating at the exact same time that that Ka-52 was shot down. An embarrassing end to Russia's sad and pitiful history of their military operations and war within the Kherson region on the upper regions of the Dnipro River. Moving on into the Ukrainian side of the lines, we have seen that the Ukrainian armed forces were advancing, and also, for one of the first times today, based off a Ukrainian Ministry of Defense statement, we were able to update our front lines accurately. The Ukrainian forces, according to the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, are now passing through the towns of Chekolove and also Cherivne. Our front lines are as accurate as they can get in this area based off of Ministry of Defense reports, but we're not making them as accurate as possible in other areas. This may be entirely inaccurate. It may be spot on. I'm going to leave that up to y'all to decide which it is, but this area here, according to the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, as of about 8 hours ago, is entirely accurate. Moving on towards the area of Milove, or behind Milove, we can see that Ukrainians are waving Ukrainian flags that they have saved, apparently, during the entire Russian occupation to greet the Ukrainian armed forces as they drive through and liberate village after village, person after person. But you see them right there on the side of the street, waving the flag as this BMP drives by, liberating their village.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I like to see it.
Love to see it, and it's wonderful to know that Ukrainians never let their patriotic spirit die, even after being subjugated by the Russians for nearly 8 months in this area, and they even saved a Ukrainian flag for this exact moment. Beautiful to see.
Can you imagine the relief they actually feel like coming out and seeing friendly forces instead of the Russians?
You know, I can't even. Just imagine one day, like just for every one of my viewers, if you're from Britain, America, Canada, imagine you right now in your home, and you walk out one day, and all of a sudden, and you've been under occupation for the longest time. Let's just say the Russians are just driving tanks down your street, Russian flags and Z's on them, and you see it every day. And then one day, it's quiet, and then the next morning, another tank, almost similar in appearance, comes driving by, but with a Ukrainian flag flying on top of it, or the flag of your home country like Canada or America flying on top of it, as they drive back through your village, liberating it, and you're now back in your country's territory. I can't even imagine the feeling that these citizens are going through as they're liberated, and I gotta say, it's a great thing to see that Kherson, it's had it a long time coming, they're finally being liberated. Moving on into the next area of the front near Zamozhne, we also saw that prisoners of war were being taken, because while the Russians are running with tails tucked across the Dnipro River, some of them aren't running fast enough. And we can see that one of them was captured here, and the Ukrainians were courteous enough to give the man a cigarette, which he is now smoking. We can now see them conversating with the prisoner as he continues to smoke his cigarette. Of course, with duct tape over his eyes, so he can't really see what's going on. The only thing he can take is a draw of the cigarette and the feeling of defeat. See him still smoking a cigarette. It sounds like the Ukrainians are conversing with him. We don't know exactly what they're saying, but the video ends right here. And with that, the hopes of this Russian continuing to fight for a government that has never cared for him has come to an end. And honestly, not any sooner than one could hope. This soldier, this may be the best thing that's ever happened to this soldier in this war, is being captured. He will no longer have to fight in the Russian army that's poorly equipped, poorly armed. He'll now be sitting out the rest of the war inside of a very cushy cell, most likely, or a very cushy stockade, where he'll sit there and be fed, most likely kept warm, until this war is ended, which those two things are things that you could never expect from the Russian armed forces or the Russian military as a whole. Moving on out of the eastern banks near the Dnipro, well, actually, I guess you could say the eastern side of the Kherson finger, and moving over towards Chkalove and also Cherivne, we've seen a decent amount of action happening in this area. First off, we've had this odd calamity happen. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Y'all are just going to have to see this to understand what I'm talking about. This is a Ukrainian T-80BV, and what we're about to witness is a Russian artillery unit driving right past them on the road as the Ukrainians trying to destroy them before they can just bypass them. It's the weirdest thing ever. I don't even know what's going on. I don't even know how to explain this. I think that the best way I can explain what we're about to watch is that the Russian armed forces in this video were given old and outdated information, and they were told that this was a safe road to drive on. They ran into this Ukrainian tank unit, and the best thing that they could do was to just keep on driving in the direction they were supposed to be going and hope that they didn't get taken out by the Ukrainians. And so, here's the video. I'm going to have to mute it. But we see right here that some shrapnel flew off of the hatch of this Ukrainian tanker. He got right back up, and they are back on the move again as he operates the machine gun in front of him, and he looks around for the enemy. We can now see the tanks firing. We can also see, that was a cool view.
That was a wild shot.
That was a cool shot. I mean, these guys already had the whole cinematic setup and everything. They fired the tank's gun, and they also have an internal camera showing you the breach when the gun fires. Just look at that. That is a cool view.
That view shows you how much force that has coming back.
And it has a massive amount of force. You can watch these tanks fire this gun, and even with the T-80 weighing 45 or 50 or so tons, these things get pushed back a little bit on the suspension by just the sheer recoil of the gun, which shows you how much firepower these things really do have. We now see them firing off the NSV machine gun on top of the turret as Ukrainian forces stand in front and kind of just watch. We can now see the Ukrainians firing off some guns into the distance. And we're about to see what they're firing at here in a second, as it's actually, the whole entire time we're watching these clips, drawing in closer. That down there, that small little amount of dust that you're seeing, and that little area of a darkish olive color, is a Russian Ural 4320 carrying behind it what appeared to be a Mista-B. And that's not the only one. There's actually several of these Ural 4320s with these artillery pieces driving down the road towards these Ukrainian tanks. We now see a camera footage from one of the rifles again, and we can see the craziest thing happen. A round bounced right nearby to this tank commander, hitting the ammo, I guess you could say the ammo can that's attached to this NSV, causing a cook-off. Check that out again. We can see it cook off, and now this tank commander, while this tank is still backing up down the road and the Russian artillerists are closing in, is trying to throw the ammo can off of the tank and replace it as fast as possible as the Ural 4320 just drives by. We can now see a clip to another bit of footage as the tanks continue to fire, and we're about to get back to that clip again. We can also see the loading not the loading animation, the loading process of the T-80BV from inside the turret. We can now see the Ukrainian tankers moving around again. This is the perspective from another vehicle in the same area. I believe it was an MTLB. We can now see another perspective of the tank commander. And now we've gotten back to the original footage that we were watching a second ago. This is a Z. That is a Z on a Ural 4320. Behind it, it's carrying a Mista-B. It drives by this Ukrainian tank. And behind it, rushing up the road, is another Russian vehicle, an MTLB. Artillery is landing nearby. The Ukrainians are peppering the MTLB. The Ural 4320 has now come to a stop to the left side. And we see this Ukrainian tanker firing at the Russians as they continue to advance, and a larger montage of this close, literally eye-to-eye fighting that's occurring in between these Ukrainian tankers and these Russians that don't even know where they are or what they're doing. We now see the tank firing again at the Russians, and advancing as we saw some abandoned tanks on the right side of the road, and fires as well. We now see the tank backing up, and it looks like the gun got flung around a little bit. I don't know what the stabilizer was doing, but that was interesting. We now see the Ukrainians passing other Ukrainian forces, giving them some 4 Locos and AKs, always a good combination. We now see them enjoying a little bit of R&R on top of their tanks, and firing into the distance once more. We now see them firing once more at the Russians again. They're firing at the Russians in this specific opening, and the footage is being clipped together from the entirety of this engagement that happened from what I'm assuming over the course of several hours, as this is the same tank, but it's in different locations, but it appears that the weather is similar throughout all of the clips. So it appears that all of this happened within the same day over different courses of time. This tank crew had to have been going through the longest day. And also you can see the Rasputitsa on the ground. The horrendous mud. And I'm surprised that this tank is still even moving through it. We now see them taking a turn down a country road, where it'll take them home to the place they belong, Kherson City. The Ukrainian tanks are firing once more. And with that, that's the end of that video. But there's no better explanation. The cluster F of occurrences that happened in that area today in the Kherson Oblast. There's no way to even explain what was going on. It was raw confusion, and the Ukrainians were trying to make lemonade out of lemons, and it looks like they ended up making an Arnold Palmer. I mean, they did quite well, all things considered. Moving on into the next clip, which is just right nearby, we can see a Ukrainian T-80BV firing again. This time, it's the unedited clip of that engagement we saw in the other video. Actually, correction. It appears to be a duplicate for some reason. Did we watch that right then? Okay, Sorry, everyone, that is a duplicate. Moving on into the next clip of footage, we saw another firefight occurring in Kherson, this time with the Georgian Legion and the Russians. Now, this was an interesting clip. It's also quite a long one, so strap in, be ready. This one's going to be quite interesting, though. You see the Georgians firing at the Russians. And we can hear it's quite a firefight. You see the Georgian crouching and pretty much running across the ground towards the other Georgians. You see this Georgian laying down the fire onto the Russians in the distance. We now see them running to a new position. And it seems like they're firing in all directions. So what I'm assuming from this, considering that the Ukrainians are not getting any kind of counterattacks at this moment, is that the Georgians have pushed so far into the Russian lines at the point of this video that they were surrounded on 3 sides. There's only one side, the direction that they just came from, that doesn't have Russians in that direction. And so they are firing at everything as they continue to break through. You hear the fire continuing in the distance. You see him continuing to fire, and this man is taking it as a personal job to continue to fire. And I can't blame him. We hear the fire really picking up as the machine guns are now laying into them and also the Russians as well. And he continues to fire his carbine over the top of this, what appears to be an entrenchment towards the Russians. You see that something was fired. I'm not sure if it was his AK or something else, but it looks like it came from where his AK was, so I'm going to assume it was the AK. You see him just giving some orders as they continue to fire at the Russians in the distance. We now see the Georgian relocating it from his position past the telephone pole and looking around at the damage that's been caused to this tree line, showing the severity of the fighting. It appears that his squad may have moved with him as well as they continue to fire almost in every direction at the Russians. He now continues to fire, and what's interesting to me while his rifle jams is that while almost everyone else in his squad appears to have some kind of an AK-74, he has an AKS-74U, which is the carbine version of the AK. In case if you don't know a lot about AKs, and to give everyone a quick refresher, the AKS-74U is the carbine of the AK-74. This thing has a little bit of a shorter barrel, you can see that right there, and these things are known to flash, and you'll see that a lot through the video. It looks like a light bulb is being turned on the front of that machine, on the front of this AK every single time it's fired. You can also see a better example of what he has, but he also has a suppressor on the front of it as well. Really interesting. I think this may denote, although I don't know a lot about what kind of weapons are given to who, this may denote that he is the squad leader. Usually squad leaders historically had lesser weapons, less powerful weapons than the normal rifleman in a squad, because their job was to tell the riflemen where to shoot and what to do. It wasn't really their job to get in the weeds and start shooting at the enemy entirely like they were a rifleman. That has changed in some degrees, I believe, especially with the US military, as the squad leader now pretty much gets the exact same weaponry as the normal rifleman. But that's an interesting thing to note, and let me know in the live chat if that is the case, because that would be interesting to know. Anyway, we're gonna let this.
I can't imagine that's very accurate considering that short barrel.
Not at all. The carbines are not as accurate from what we know as an AK-74, of course, because the bullet is not able to get, I guess you could say, the exact same ballistics that allow it to have the spin for it to achieve such a range. So it's most likely certainly not as accurate as the AK-74 at range, but it doesn't really matter for a squad leader. And of course, some people may be wondering, what's the context behind that? My context is generally coming from the First and Second World Wars, specifically with the U.S. Army and also the British Army, which usually didn't equip squad leaders with more powerful weapons than the normal, I guess you could say, riflemen, or at least longer range rifles. But with that, we're back to the video.
Now, Enforcer, before you play the video, I see some people saying that the suppressor right there in that shot is white hot. Is it because of the heat, or is it just discoloration on the outside of the suppressor?
It may be white hot because he's fired so many rounds through it, because we've watched this guy dump so many rounds through this AK that I would believe that suppressor is probably taking a lot of damage. And you can also kind of hear that when it fires. It doesn't really sound suppressed anymore like a normal suppressor. It sounds like it's going click, 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 like that when it fires. And so it may be that he has worn out the baffles in the suppressor and it's white hot now because it's been fired so much that it's now taken a decent amount of heat damage. But then again, I'm kind of talking on my experience here because I haven't had a lot of experience with suppressors. Of course, that requires a tax stamp, and I'm not really a big fan of getting tax stamps, to be honest with y'all. And so with that, we're going to let the video continue. You now see him firing again, and it looks like his AK is starting to jam. We hear him yelling "Davai," which means something similar to move or hurry up. We now see some of his squad members running in front of him, and we can now hear him fire his AK again. It looks like it's jammed again. They're now continuing to move on, telling them to hurry on up. We now see that the footage has been cut. They've now moved positions. We can hear him firing the AK again, and if you listen to that, I am just not sure that's an OK suppressor. I don't have a lot of experience with them. I've only shot very few suppressed guns, and those were hardly at all. So I don't know if that's normal sounding for an AK carbine, but let me know in the live chat if it is or isn't, if you've had any experience firing AK carbines yourself. Also, we can see this guy wearing the ACU, or the universal pattern. We now see that he's got a nice little toy. He's got a little M320. I wonder what he would do with an M320. You see him loading his M320 still. He's still fiddling with the M320 a little bit more. Also, someone said M32. I believe it is the let me hang on, everyone. I gotta check that real quick. M320. Okay, that is not the M320. It may be the M32. M32 grenade launcher? Yes. Okay, thank you so much for saying... Yeah, thank you so much for saying that, Ekpat, in the live chat, because I was calling it an M320 the whole time, and that is certainly not an M320. You hear the fire continuing. He's now firing off the M32. And this firefight just went serious. Firefight's continuing to go on. It appears that he's now picked up his carbine and is firing, as we can see the bright flashes on the very top of the screen. And this firefight has now gone mental. Of course, the Georgians can't get in the firefight without it being absolutely insane. And so all hell is broken loose. He's continuing to fire his carbine.
Dang.
It's getting a little intense. Bullets are bouncing off the ground around him as he reloads his AK. He continues to fire. That's very distinct ringing sound still going on. The man, calm and collected, as hell is literally evolving around him and manifesting itself on Earth, is now calmly switching to his M32 again, picking it up, along with the rest of his stuff, and repositioning. Moving past some other Georgians, through the tree line once more. You now see him setting it down behind two of his friends. Fumbled his AK for a second. It looks like he's grabbing it with the M32 again. You now hear him firing the AK again. Of course, yelling out information and orders to each other. Cyber LA said, and I complain about my office job.
Yeah, you wouldn't want this job.
I don't know if anyone will want this job. I don't even think Mike Rowe would take this on dirtiest jobs. I mean, you see all kinds of neat little goodies and toys in front of this man. As he now gets out the AK and keeps on firing, we can also see an RPG in front of him. The firefight still goes on. They're laying down as much fire as they can. But it does sound like the fire is starting to die off. Mostly coming from the Georgian side now as they continue to fire at the Russians. Now grabbing the M32 again. I have to tell y'all, if there was an OSHA inspector around these guys, he would be going off right now. There's a lot of things that are unsafe about these working conditions, and I don't think he would be a big fan of them. But the Georgians don't care about safety, they care about winning. And it sounds like they're keeping their cool under fire, and that they're turning the situation around for the large part. Of course, they did take the ground today, so I think that's a great indicator that they kept it all together. We hear the Georgians continuing to yell out orders as this video comes to an end here in the next few seconds. And the firefight appears to be dying down for the large part. And with that, that's the end of that video. And that isn't the only one we have from Kherson. In fact, that's not the only one we have from the Georgians. We actually got drone footage of the Georgian Legion also conducting a raid in a similar location on the front lines. But it appears, I did not see this earlier, when I watched this video originally, it was not marked as that. Let me take that off screen real quick, and let me take a look at it real quick, everyone. And if it isn't, I will show it. If it is, I will not. So, let me speed through it real quick and take a quick look. Hang on, everyone. Alright, so I can show it up till the 1 minute mark, but I'll have to cut it off from there. I just had to make sure, everyone, we have to always play it safe. We always want to make sure to be within YouTube's community guidelines. And so, here are the Georgians conducting a raid on a trench outside of one of the towns that they just rolled through today. And of course, I had to make sure that we don't show anything that is not safe for work, which is NSFW. And so, here's the video. When you see the Georgians, like the absolute chads they are, riding on the back of the tank, which they will use to help them in this raid, they now begin to unload from the tank. And now, the Georgians, accompanied by the tank, advance forward onto the Russian trenches outside of the small village. The Ukrainian tank firing its machine gun, Georgians following behind, firing off their cannon at the Russians, hitting right in front of the trench, and we can tell that the Russians are already in a bad spot. The Georgians, fearless as they are, continue to advance directly onto the trench with Russians inside, with a calm coolness in their step, a nice little slow walk.
They're just strolling up on that crappy trench.
The Russians come climbing out the other end as the Georgians are going in and are running off into the distance. The Georgians firing as they retreat. We see one Russian taking a kneel for a second, and with that, we cannot play the video from here. But one thing I can say is that there is the aftermath in this video. It looks like the last 20 seconds of it are the aftermath of the Georgians clearing this trench and sweeping the Russians off the field. And if y'all want to see it, y'all can click on the link in the description below and take a look for it for yourself. But it's pretty certain that the Georgians definitely took that position almost without a fight. And it shows you how demoralized the average Russian soldier is in that area. And so with that, we're now going to be moving down to the area of LIBERATES, where we also saw that the Terra unit itself, the famous Terra unit, is now at work in Kherson. And so with that, let's check out this video to see what they've been doing. So we're going to mute this real quick because we got some epic music playing, and we can see all of the Terra unit BMP2s that they have. We can now see their drones in operation as they point out what appears to be a Russian center of command and some Russian troops walking down the street, and that is enough for the Ukrainians to level the whole place. The BMP2s now are advancing down a country road, and most likely towards where they saw these guys. We can now see the Ukrainian artillery landing in the fields in front of them, most likely trying to hit the Russian forces, and the Ukrainians now advancing through the open field, Ukrainian flags flying on top of the BMPs as they fire. More Ukrainian armored vehicles are also flowing into the city as well from other directions. I mean, you see some kind of a pause in the very end of the footage there, but we can see that the Terra unit is certainly guiding the Ukrainians to victory in this area, and of course a huge credit to them, as well as all the other units that are involved currently in the counterattacks, well, the planned counterattacks, which have started to happen a little bit early in Kherson, as the Russians have now decided to retreat from the entire area and withdraw. And so with that, the situation in Kherson looks fantastic. in case if y'all want to know where the front lines were just yesterday, the front lines were in between Staritsia, Novokuban, Chernovy Yar, and Milove. Across the entirety of the front line, from what we've been able to tell, the Ukrainians have advanced over the past 24 hours almost 8 miles southwards towards the town of Novokakovka. These are massive gains, and based off of the Russians withdrawing from the entire area, we can expect them to lose the rest of the ground within the coming days, and Kherson will finally have Ukrainian flags flying over its buildings once more, and the jewel of the Dnipro River, the crown of the Ukrainian port cities along the coastline, except for Odessa, will once again be Ukraine's and will never be Russian again. And so, with the conclusion of this little segment on Kherson, we're now going to start moving towards Odessa, where we've seen some incredible videos of Ukrainian Su-27s engaging cruise missiles mid-air and on film, where we can actually see the jet and the cruise missile in the same video at the exact same time. But before we get to that, let's address some of our polls, Matthew.
All right, so for the first question of polls and also questions, we have a poll that says, are you shocked that Russia has actually surrendered and retreated from Kherson? And the word surrendered is a little too premature. That was a goof up on my part, so sorry about that. But it looks like 43% said no, I knew it would happen. 42% said yes, I am shocked but glad. And 15% said I'm not sure. Now, Enforcer, what do you think about those results?
I think that they are pretty on par with what I was thinking, you know, like in the orders of tier. I expected that the Russians would lose Kherson eventually. It's their weakest link in the entire front line. But one thing I did not expect at all was for them to just declare that they were withdrawing from the area and start pouring over the Kherson River. Because with this retreat, you always have to keep in mind, all of the Russian ground forces equipment on that side of the river is practically unrecoverable unless if it crosses the ferry at Kherson, which is a very slow process, and they only have one of them. And with that in mind, there's going to be dozens, if not hundreds, of Russian vehicles, tanks included, and armored personnel carriers that are going to be left abandoned, probably intact, on the other side of the Dnipro River for the Ukrainians to capture and use against them later. That is unbelievable to think that it's become that bad and the situation is that poor on that side of the Dnipro River that they would give up the entire thing. That also plays into, I'm sure some people have been thinking this, and I have as well, that they may be trying to lull the Ukrainians into closing in and taking all of this land as fast as possible, so that way they can then blow up the Novokakovka Dam and hopefully wipe out a large amount of Ukrainians and Ukrainian soldiers that would have made it to Dnipro River shores at that point on the northern bank. So, of course, I think that this is really more so not to do that, but more so of a strategic move from the Russians, so that way they can try and keep their armed forces as intact as possible moving on. And one very important thing that we have to remember is that once the Ukrainians and the Russians stabilize their front lines along the Dnipro River, this front line will most likely not move for the remainder of the war. And if it does, it will be an incredibly late war event that will be on the very brink of the Russians truly dissolving within Ukraine and most likely within Russia itself at that point. One has to always remember that river crossings are incredibly dangerous for both sides. The greatest example of that was when the Russians tried to cross the Seversky Donets River north of Lysychansk and ended up losing 2 entire battalion tactical groups within the course of 2 hours. Around 1,600 men and over 120 vehicles. It was an unbelievable thing to see, and to think that the Ukrainians or the Russians would attempt to try and cross the Dnipro River again, this time not with the advantage of surprise, not with the advantage of intact bridges. They would have to set up their own bridge crossings across the river, and it is incredibly wide. The Dnipro River in this area is about a half-mile wide at its thinnest, and probably about a mile wide at its thickest, and so to think that either side could try and cross that river is highly unlikely, and it would most likely incur a large amount of casualties and result in the defeat, whoever was trying to pull it off. And so once the Ukrainians reach this area, that's it for this part of the front line. They're not going to see, most likely, any other activity until the very end of the war. And so with that, I hope that addresses the poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next poll said, do you think the Russians are setting a trap for the Ukrainians with their retreat from Kherson? It looks like 47% said yes, I feel like it's a trap. 21% said I don't know, and 32% said no, it's a real retreat, no trap. Now on this one, I'm honestly not really sure. I saw a lot of people saying that in the comments, so that is what inspired the poll. So Enforcer, what are your thoughts?
I'm going to have to be honest. I'm going to have to say, I believe it's a serious retreat. There is no, and of course, That's always a huge question. But one thing that you have to remember is that militaries in conventional wars like these, their entire currency is land captured, and losing any of it deliberately is a move that very few countries actually do. We have never really seen that over the course of war, except for one time, and that would have been during the Napoleonic Wars when Napoleon started marching towards Moscow. That is the only time that the Russians' strategy of any nation was to deliberately lose land in the hope that something would kill the French in the meantime. And of course, a lot of people would say that that was the Soviets' plan in the Second World War. That is not the case. The Russians did not plan on losing all the ground that they did in 1941 during Operation Barbarossa. That came as a complete shock to them and threatened the Soviets at the time with losing their few remaining major cities they had left. They had already lost Minsk as well as Kyiv, which were some of their largest cities to the west of the country. And now, at that point, Leningrad, Moscow, and Stalingrad were also threatened with being encircled and completely lost. It was not something that the Russians wanted to happen, and of course you would see that that was an undesired effect at that time in history based off of the issuing of Soviet Order number 223, not one step back. That order pretty much showed that it was not the Russians' plan to have the Germans overextend their supply lines and freeze to death in the winter. It was in fact their plan to hold them right where they were, and of course at that point there was also the added effect that if they lost these cities, there was really nothing left to fight for within the rest of Russia, or the Soviet Union for that matter. But still, I think that this retreat, considering the historical precedent, is quite serious. And also, on top of that, you have to remember that the Dnipro River itself and the Dnipro River reservoirs are in their own right a massive natural defensive line. It's going to be incredibly difficult for the Ukrainians, even as competent as they are compared to the Russians, to try and cross this without taking an unbelievable amount of casualties. I just don't think that the Russians would pull this move unless if they said, we're going to be losing thousands of troops and tanks anyways, let's just lose the tanks, pull the soldiers to the other side, we'll give them some outdated equipment, and with the river in front of them, it will be quite difficult for the Ukrainians to cross, and it will relieve a lot of logistical stress on this part of the front lines, as a attack from this direction will no longer be possible or likely. And that's also backed up with the fact that they have been on the Dnipro River Reservoir all the way from Novokakhovka to Vasilivka at this point, and we've never seen the Ukrainians attempt any kind of river crossing or landing on the other side, or the Russians for that matter, because it would just be too difficult and the casualties would be too high with almost no gain. And so with that, I hope that addresses that poll as well. I believe, in my opinion, that this is a quite serious move on their end. And just in case if Matthew has anything to add, because this is a really interesting point, and you can really go any direction you want with this one, do you agree with that, or would you have anything to add to it?
Generally, I would say I agree, but I just don't know enough to add anything to it, to be honest.
Dagnabbit. All right. And so with that, we are on to the next poll.
All right, and the next poll says, do you like the new classy rendition of the Ukrainian anthem in the intro of the stream? It looks like 79% said yes, it is a great replacement. 21% said no, I don't like it. Now, for me, considering we can't use the old one because it's been copyrighted, I think this new classy one is pretty good. I was sort of iffy about the song we used the other day, but this one, I really like it. And it looks like the majority of you do as well. So, Enforcer, what do you think about that?
I like it, but we are going to be trying to make some modifications and improvements to it in the future. Of course, the other one had a lot of added sound effects to it that went with the video. We will be seeing about having a brand new video edited to go with that anthem exactly, and the kind of tone and pace it sets with sound effects in the background, because I think that's what defined the other Ukrainian anthem. It wasn't just the high pep in the step kind of sound that it had. It was also all the sound effects that went with it in the background. I think it added a lot to it, and I want to see if we can try and recreate that anthem the best we can with the new one. As far as I can tell, the new one was made by the U.S. Navy band, and so it is copyright free. Of course, that is based off of the information we have right now, and so we will be trying to amplify and perfect that one as time goes on to make it as killer as the Ukrainian anthem we had before. And of course, before anyone asks, we can't use the old one because The old one was copyrighted, and we don't want to get in any trouble. I went and actually tried to check out and see about how much a license would be to keep on using that one. And from what I could find, I couldn't even find a way to get a license for that particular version of the anthem. So with that, it looks like we will never be able to use that one again, unfortunately. So I hope I addressed that poll fairly well. I love the new one. I think it's a great replacement. And with that, we are on to the next poll. And if we don't have one, let's answer some questions from the chat.
All right, and real quick, just to cover something, because I see we have a lot of new viewers in the chat tonight, and it's good to see you all, and welcome to the Leaf Spring Army. Maybe one day we can get around to explaining exactly what that means again. But for now, if you have a question and you don't want to put in a super chat, the way it works, tag me at Enforcer Matt and put your question in the live chat, and I will see it and put it in a queue, which is a spreadsheet on my end, and we answer them at the end of the stream. Also, if you want to support the channel, we also accept super chats, and that helps to keep us running. And also, please hit the like if you haven't already, because y'all don't even know how much that helps the stream. That pushes the news out to more and more people and helps us get the word out. So we do appreciate it very much. And moving in to our first super chat, we have an $80 donation from Mark, Slav Ukraine. He's a channel legend and says they would not retreat without a plan. Somehow, he managed to convince Putin it's better to preserve at least the structure of their best troops. They will have a new plan. Putin will wage this war until the end. Agreed?
And I thank you so much for the support, Mark, and welcome back! I haven't seen you support this channel for a couple of days, and I thank you so much for supporting us. It means a lot, and of course, that massive amount of support helps us to keep this channel running, helps us to keep the lights on, and helps us to keep on focusing on this as a full-time job. And so thank you so much once again. Now, to answer that question, I entirely agree with you that the Russians do have a plan, and that plan is to solidify their front lines as much as they can and have them pretty much locked in place. That being in mind, there are places where the Russian front line will most likely not move for the duration of the war. And I'm going to draw these out real quick because they're pretty good points. Starting off at Vasilivka, the entire Dnipro River reservoir serves as a natural barrier, and we'll connect it to the line we already made down here. This serves as a natural barrier in between the Ukrainians and the Russians, where the Ukrainians really can't cross. Even with the Ukrainians being as competent and well-equipped as compared to the Russians, crossings like these, unless you have a massive amount of resources involved, are very high casualty and very low reward kind of attacks. Very few of them have succeeded through history. The only two I can think of off the top of my head would be Crete. Well, not Crete, sorry. Sicily. Crete was a whole another story. In fact, that was a disaster. Sicily and Normandy. Those are the only two I can think of in the Second World War that happened within the European theater. And those were actually quite ambitious on their own and required almost the entire manpower of the Royal Navy and the U.S. Navy in the European theater to pull off, along with a lot of civilian ships that had to be commandeered to make them successful. And so these front lines largely become solidified and will require a small amount of forces and a small amount of supplies to maintain. Real quick, let me put down Russian defensive line. Put that right there, and we'll also highlight it in the same color of blue that we have for the other one, so that way we can remember this from here on. And so this whole entire area from Vasilivka down towards Kherson solidified. I wouldn't expect a lot of changes to happen here. It will be a lot more cost efficient for the Russians. It will help them to conserve their supplies and also divert manpower to other areas, because if the Ukrainians did somehow pull off a river crossing, it would take a little bit of time for it to actually cause any kind of damage, which would give the Russians enough time to try and push forces into these areas to counter those landings, if they did happen. In other areas of the front line, there is a massive, solid front line right here, and while it's over solid ground, this front line has existed for so long that it has formed itself into the brand new Maginot Line, this being in the DPR area. This front line practically will not change. Russian solid line, we'll put that right there just so that way we can keep that in mind in the future. We'll most likely delete that one as well after we answer this. But that part of the front line, I wouldn't expect the Ukrainians to make a lot of movement through that area. This front line has been here for around 8 to 9 years, been heavily fortified by both sides, and an advance by either side here is highly unlikely. It would take a massive amount of effort, and it will also take a miracle to be able to burst through. I would consider that at that point to be bursting through the French Maginot Line, or the Americans and the British during the First World War breaking through the Hindenburg Line that existed for the Germans in late 1918. The only other place, actually this line is the exact same color as the others, that does not mean the same. Well, actually, It kind of does. This is on a river. And so we went through a while ago and said that this is most likely where the Russians would set up another defensive line, but I do not count the defensive positions in the Luhansk area to be as well off as the ones in Donetsk, because they are not fortified anymore by either side. That would pretty much be, similarly in a historical context, bringing up World War II again, like the Germans trying to reinvigorate the Siegfried Line in 1944 to try and defend against the American and British and Canadian push coming from France. It wouldn't do that effectively. They would have to start stripping loads of stuff from around the rest of their front to try and make that a defensive position again, and I just don't think that'll happen. And so for that reason, I believe that these blue marked areas are where the Ukrainians and Russians would pretty much find themselves in a stalemate, either because of the heavy fortifications or because of the natural landscape that would really impede any kind of advances. So with that in mind, the Russians do have a plan, and it's to try and divert most of their resources and efforts to the northeast, and also to further fortify the south, where there can be massive amounts of ground most likely made. And so with that, of course, take that with a grain of salt, because while I'm saying all of this, one does have to keep in mind that these things may be wrong. There is always room for everyone to be wrong, and I am certainly not an infallible and always correct person. There is always room for things to be incorrect. So take it with a grain of salt, but that's what I'm seeing right now, and I have to agree with you 100%, Mark. The Russians do have a plan with this. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and I hope we were able to address that comment fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $50 super chat from, oh, can y'all believe it? We've gotten a visit from the Cambot.
Oh my
it has
God,
been
it's
a month or
back!
so. It's back.
And it's gone.
Just like that, the Stugna was used. But back to that super chat, we have a $50 donation from Felix the Fat, who I think is actually Felix the Cat, but renamed. That's a strange new username there, but very interesting. They say Portugal sent Kamov helicopters to Ukraine. Given how dated they are, what is their usefulness in the battlefield, if any? Are they useful outside the battlefield? Love your stream. The best cover of this war.
And I thank you so much for the support and the kind words as well. And to answer that question, I don't know specifically which Kamov you are talking about. The Kamov KA-52 is also a Kamov. So I don't know which one, but if you are talking about the KA-29 or the KA-31, they aren't that outdated, and they are, I guess you could say, comparable to what the Ukrainians have used at a point, or at least it's technologically comparable. And so with that in mind, I would have to say it's not too bad. It will probably do as well as an Mi-8 or an Mi-17 with less of an ability to carry a payload, like we can see right here. But it doesn't negate its effectiveness. It will be more helicopters in the air and more munitions that the Ukrainians can fire. And while it is kind of outdated, I guess you could say it wouldn't be as, well, it's probably as outdated as an Mi-8 or an Mi-17, which we can see right here. Which is actually, what? Phone cases? That's not what we're, more phone cases? That's not a helicopter. Anyways, moving on to this. This is probably about...
Wait a minute. There's a Xiaomi phone called Mi-8. What in the world?
It's like when you take it off the phone, it turns into a helicopter. Speaking of Chinese products, did you see, Matthew? Just as a quick side note and a little bit of a rabbit hole, did you see that the Chinese kicked former President Hu out of the Chinese Communist Party Congress today?
Wait, really?
Yeah, they kicked him out. We'll pull up that video probably during the question segment at the very end of the stream, but it was insane. Like, and we'll have to get to that anyways later on. But I think it would be technologically comparable to an Mi-8, although smaller and not able to carry as much ordnance as an Mi-8 that's outfitted to carry unguided rockets. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and the kind words as well. Both the support and the kind words mean a lot to this channel, and it helps us to keep on running. And so with that, I hope I was able to answer your question fairly well, and we are on to the final question of this segment. So with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and that super chat goes to BL Parak, who is also a channel legend. He puts in a $21 donation and says, the new anthem music gives a different feel, like we are watching history, which we are. Also, I think those M30A1s are taking a toll on the Russians. It's a devastating weapon.
And thank you so much for the support. And also, I thank you so much for enjoying this channel and also the comments you just threw in. They are pretty interesting. I would have to say that we are pretty much witnessing a history at this point. I have never seen a military, at least in modern warfare, just to give up. I mean, like, the Ukrainians have now it said a counteroffensive is coming, and literally the Russians just said, I'm out. They just literally just tapped out. They're like, nah, we're not dealing with another one. We're just going to cross the river and get this thing done with. And that's unbelievable. I mean, like, usually a military at least tries to put up some kind of resistance, but that shows you how bad off they are. The Russian command knows that the Russian armed forces on the other side of the Dnipro River can't survive another counterattack. They will collapse. And so they're trying to save as many of them as they can and use them for a defensive on the other side of the river. And so that is actually quite insane to see. And can you reread that one again, Matthew, to make sure I'm covering all of the points?
He said that the anthem music gives a different feel, like we're watching history, and also he thinks that the M30A1s are taking a toll on the Russians.
And also, yes, the anthem does make it feel quite special. We replaced it with a decent song yesterday, but it just doesn't have the same feeling as the Ukrainian anthem, considering the channel and the war at this point is mostly about Ukraine. And so I would definitely have to agree with that. And I'd also have to agree that the HIMARS, whatever kind of munitions they're firing at this point, whether they be M40s, M30s, M30A1s, they are causing a lot of damage to the Russians. And I think the Russians have started to notice. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we're now going to be moving on into our next news segment, starting off in Odessa, where we've seen something absolutely mental. We've seen a couple of indications that Ukrainian Air Force aircraft have been shooting down missiles over the skies of Ukraine, but never footage like this. Today we saw an Su-27 stalking a Caliber cruise missile as it flew inland. I mean, literally stalking. So here's the video. When you see the Caliber right there, and behind it, a Ukrainian Su-27 following it. That is nuts. That is something you would have seen in the Second World War when the Spitfire was trying to tip over a V-1 Doodlebug. We never see this in modern warfare. Yet the Ukrainian Air Force is actually stalking cruise missiles to shoot them down. Not only that, they weren't only stalking these cruise missiles, they shot it down. Here's the video of another Su-27 shooting down a cruise missile over Odessa today with an air-to-air missile. You can't make this stuff up. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. I think this is even more crazier than the man-pad that shot down the cruise missile a week ago. And so, here's the video. When you see the Su-27 flying in, fires off its air-to-air missile. That thing went off the rail and took a 90-degree turn on the spot. Just look at that thing go. It slams right into the cruise missile, destroying it all in the same frame. The explosion finally caught up to him. But oh my god. That is the first time on film in this war that we watched an Su-27 in the same frame. We've seen it fire a missile before. We've never seen the missile hit the cruise missile in the same frame. That is insane. You'll never see this again probably throughout the entirety of the war. And at this point, it almost feels like Winston Churchill should come out of his grave and say, "Never was so much owed by so many to so few," because the Ukrainian Air Force is out there, still flying, months into this war. No one believed that the Ukrainian Air Force would survive the first month. 8 months later, they're still here, and saving the people of Ukraine from these merciless Russian bombardments of cruise missiles and suicide drones that are constantly pouring into Ukraine. It's unbelievable to think that these brave pilots take to the skies each and every day, outnumbered on paper, but not outnumbered in their determination and spirit to make sure that Ukraine will be defended for the rest of all time. And this video is a great service and testament to that fact. They're not alone either. The West has been paying attention to this war, of course, and we're starting to send some very clear messages from the 101st Airborne in Romania. A lot of y'all may know the 101st Airborne. They, of course, are known as the Screaming Eagles. And they also have a really cool patch. Of course, this patch has been monikered at this point by everyone on Earth. And I don't think there's anyone around that doesn't know the 101st Airborne patch. These guys are the stuff when it comes to the Airborne, and they are really the mark of American excellence. The 101st Airborne has now been deployed into Romania. And from what they've said, and at least from what their press officer has said, they are ready to go into Ukraine tomorrow, if need be. They have been preparing and drilling within the fields of Romania to be ready at a moment's notice if need be. There is a picture of the 101st Airborne right there. And is that a sick picture or what, Matthew? That really makes you feel proud of the
That
U.S.
is
Army.
cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
I gotta say, and of course it always sounds a little weird when you say it, but it puts a smile on my face to know that the U.S. isn't idly sitting by. We are ready if anything was to happen. And the 101st Airborne, one of our finest and most distinguished units in U.S. military history, is just right there, ready to go if they were needed to tomorrow. Of course, this is a massive deal. The Russians have been on the brink of blowing up the Novokhovka Dam, and President Zelenskyy has been warning the West to threaten the Russians not to do such a thing, as it would be a massive war crime, killing thousands, if not tens of thousands of civilians. And it appears that while the U.S. hasn't made any direct statements, any official diplomatic statements, their actions are speaking a little bit louder than their words, and the 101st Airborne doesn't speak any words, it's all action. And so with that, it's nice to see that little picture of the 101st Airborne, and also it's good to know that the press secretary, or at least the press officer from the 101st Airborne, says they are ready to fight tonight. Those are words to be put down in history, and if they have to step up to the plate, there wouldn't be anyone who could do it better than the 101st. With that, we're now going to be moving out of Romania, and of course from my massive pride for the American Armed Forces, which, while they haven't been able to spread their wings in Ukraine, and hopefully they won't ever have to, I believe they will definitely make the Ukrainians, while looking as impressive and well put together as they are now, they would make them even look like amateurs, as the 101st has never not put on a show, and has never given the United States a bad name. Moving on into Ukrainian territory, however, and speaking of the incredibly brave men and women who continue to defend the Ukrainian homeland, we have seen a little bit of training going on today with a brand new machine gun. It's not exactly new, but the concept of using this machine gun in this way is quite insane. This is a Dishka, and in case if y'all don't know, this is pretty much the Russian equivalent, and it's been around for about as long as the American 50 caliber machine gun that we've had in U.S. service. This thing was put into service in 1938, and it's quite old, but it's stuck around like the 50 caliber here in the U.S., and it's quite a beefy gun. Usually these things are mounted onto a tripod or a vehicle or something similar. You never really see these things set up to fire, I guess you could say, from a bipod, but it appears that the Ukrainians, in their madness of just firepower, have now put this thing onto a bipod, and they're using it like a normal machine gun. Let's watch this video. Raw insanity.
That sounds smooth.
Yeah, it sounds smooth, and this is raw insanity. Of course, the recoil of a 50 caliber isn't unmanageable, but the weight of this thing, do y'all know how much a Dishka weighs? Like, it's incredibly heavy, I can tell y'all that. Let me pull it up again real quick, and let me give y'all the weight. So scrolling down, the weight of this machine gun is 74 pounds and 15 ounces on its own. Imagine having to lug that thing around on a front line. That would kill a man. I think it would actually take a crew to move this Dishka around, and hopefully they put it on some kind of a wheel mount or something like that, so they can just drag it around like a ready-to-go suitcase on vacation. But I gotta give it a huge credit to the Ukrainians. They are never not thinking of a way to kill Russians deader, and this one will definitely be getting the job done in a pretty interesting way. With that, we're now going to be moving on out of the training fields of Ukraine and on into our location unknowns. But before we do, we have to take a quick visit to Belgrade, because we don't know what's happened there. We don't know why, but there's been a massive fire there, and it is smoky. Quite smoky, as a matter of fact. A massive fire has broken out. And so here's a video of that fire. But once again, we just don't really know what's caused it. Sabotage, Ukrainian missile, we really don't know. But with that, that's the end of the video, and it looks like Belgrade is once again getting it again. Regardless of how, they are taking it. With that, we're now going to be moving on into our location unknowns, which we have a pretty decent amount of, but not too much. It's pretty average, actually, compared to yesterday and the day before. And so starting off, we can see a Ukrainian drone hitting the Russians. A very nice start to the location unknowns. You can see them taking a look at the drone footage as they are sitting right on top of the Russians. Russians moving around their little outpost.
по цьому що йде.
Стали.
Да, кидаю.
The bomblet's now on its way, and...
Якраз они...
Oh.
Красавчик, 2 200. Все, давай додому.
With that, that's the end of that video, but I don't think it can be argued that that drone bomblet wasn't effective at its job. Moving on into the next clip, we can see that a Russian show-off was taken out. Matthew, have you ever burned a donut in your car?
Not particularly.
Me either. I've always found that the smell of a burning donut is quite unfavorable, but we can see this Russian here pulling a donut and then immediately getting destroyed by an anti-tank mine once he stops doing a donut. There's the tank doing a donut to show off. It drives forward, and bam, and German anti-tank mine goes off on the side of the road, destroying the tank. Right there.
Unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. No more sick willies for Ivan. With that, that's the end of that video. That's the end of that video. And it looks like, regardless of how much the Russians show off, the German anti-tank mine, the DM-22, just does not care. Moving on into the next clip, we can also see a Ukrainian sniper at work. And quite effectively as well. Here's the video.
Раз, два.
Wait a minute, did you see that? You can actually watch the bullet fly.
Раз, два.
Hang on. Right there, did you see it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did see
Oh my
it.
gosh, you can see the distortion in the air as it continues to push its little way along. Oh my gosh. And then the Russian went down, and the sniper was successful. Pretty nice to see. And I gotta say, it's very interesting. At the beginning of the war, we didn't see a lot of Ukrainian snipers. Now we have nothing but Ukrainian sniper videos almost daily. Like I don't know if they've started up a real successful sniper school or something similar, but they're doing a pretty good job at the whole entire sniping ordeal. And I would have to say, I hope that they are on the mark. That was a very poor joke. I was trying to figure out how to make that work. Sorry, everyone. Moving on into the next clip, we can see a Ukrainian soldier providing first aid to one of his friends that has suffered a little bit of an injury. It doesn't appear to be a serious one from what we can tell, and hopefully they're all right. Of course, it's not incredibly graphic. We hardly see anything, but we can see the level of attention and care that Ukrainian soldiers give to each other, and of course, the level of training that they have to be able to do such a thing as pulling off first aid like this. And so, here's the video.
Сел. Перебинтовки,
See him sitting down beside his
Сюда,
friend.
медик тут.
You see
Остальные,
that he has been
давайте.
hurt a little bit.
Перебинтовки, медик, остальные идите.
You can see the soldier dealing with it like a champ, as his friend tries to help him out here. You see him treating it.
Ко мне тоже прилетело, они левого ебанули по нам. Вроде как.
Artillery landing around, but this man will not stop in taking care of his friend. He will keep on going, even if the artillery continues to land around them.
Давай, беги туда, туда. И вот еще. Где-то.
They're now moving on. Artillery still landing just feet away, and the Ukrainians are as cool as a cucumber. With that, that's the end of the video, and I gotta give a huge credit to Ukrainian soldiers. Of course, we don't cover it a lot on this channel, and we don't really have a lot of video footage to show of it either, but Ukrainian soldiers do get wounded, and Ukrainian soldiers do take casualties. It's a unfortunate reality of war that every side will lose some men, and some valuable women and men, citizens altogether. And of course, when you think about that, you gotta admire the Ukrainian morale situation. Even with soldiers being killed all over every once in a while. Of course, the Ukrainians not as much as the Russians, but with soldiers being wounded and killed, they still keep up their high spirits, and they still keep up the level of professionalism and, I guess you could say, coolness that keeps them getting less casualties in a firefight as the Russians. We hardly ever see. In fact, I don't think we've only seen but one video of Ukrainians losing their cohesion in a firefight. And this, of course, is just another testament of Ukrainian training and resilience under incredibly difficult conditions. With that, we're now going to be moving on into the next clip of Location Unknown News, where we see the Ukrainians retrieving one of their drones. A very rare video to watch, because we rarely ever see them get them back. We just see them in use. And so, here's the video.
Смертника. Поле, он там димиться, щось прилетіло. Штатний смертник має вибігати і ловити борт.
See them looking into the
Штатний
distance.
смертник, вперед!
Now see him walking into the open. Artillery landing around them. Now see him running out into the open to go grab the drone. It looks like it's not an R-18. It's some other kind of large drone. But he just grabs it like a bird and he starts walking back. Nice to see that they are still using those drones to great effect. And also really neat to see them recovering one. Because I didn't know that they just literally just plucked them out of the air. I thought they landed them on the ground and then picked them up. And so with that, we're now on to our next bit of Location Unknown News. But we're actually going to do a quick switcheroo. And save that one for last, because I think that's a great way to end the Location Unknowns. And so into the next clip, we're going to see the inside of a Panzerhaubitze 2000 as it's doing its auto-loading. A really cool video. Of course, I can't play it because they're playing some kind of corporate lo-fi hip-hop music. But we can also see this neat auto-loading mechanism inside the Panzerhaubitze 2000. Something else interesting we can see is that on this very fast-moving object is a seat for someone to sit on. And I don't know about you, Matthew, but I wouldn't want to be rotated 180 degrees in 1 second, like this right here. I feel like that would be uncomfortable. We now see the autoloader continuing to do its job. And it's just so impressive to see how luxurious the Panzerhaubitze 2000 is inside of it, and how automated it is as well. The crew members inside of a Panzerhaubitze do very little in terms of manual labor. These guys are raw intellectuals. They think of how to turn orcs into paste from dozens of miles away, and don't even have to lift a single finger to get the gun to load. And so with that, that's the end of that little video. But once again, also, Matthew, we cannot hear you talk for some reason. I just saw you send that message. I cannot hear you right now. 1 second, everyone. Let me check on Discord. Testing, 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 testing. I don't know if he can hear me or not. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into our final clip of news for the night. And of course, it is the Russian losses for the day. Day 242, right here. 67,000 men lost in this war. 67,070 troops as of October 22nd. In 2 days, it will have become the end of the 8th month of the war, and it'll be the beginning of the 9th. And on the very eve, pretty much, of the 9th month of this war, the Russians have lost almost 70,000 soldiers. It's insane to see that they've lost this many soldiers, and they've also lost 2,500 tanks, and they're racing on their way up towards 2,600 tanks, 5,300 armored personnel carriers, 1,700 artillery pieces, 375 MLRSs, 189 anti-aircraft systems, 270 planes, losing another one today. 243 helicopters, the Ka-52 that was shot down today apparently was not included yet. 16 boats, 1,341 drones, 148 special equipment vehicles, over 4,000 supply trucks and fuel trucks, and 329 cruise missiles shot down. These are the numbers of a country that has lost a war and will never recover, most likely over the next several decades, from the impacts that this war will have on them. Also, Matthew, feel free to keep on testing your audio. I cannot hear you yet, and I will let you know as soon as you butt in when we can. Unfortunately, Matthew's having some audio issues right now, apparently, but this war, it can't go on for longer. And these numbers are most likely the reason that the Russians aren't even waiting for the Ukrainians to conduct a counterattack in Kherson, and they're already retreating to the other side of the Dnipro. They cannot afford to take any more casualties of soldiers and tanks because the manpower simply is not there anymore, unless they were to start scraping the barrel and create mass pandemonium and lead the Russian nation into collapse. And so with that, just take a look at these numbers. I'm going to give you all a second here, just a few moments, to look at these numbers and just know that the Russians are done for. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from our location unknowns and into all of the news from the Northeast. We haven't actually gotten a lot near Spitove, nor Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, but we've gotten a small amount in the Bakhmut and Donetsk area. And so before we get to that, we're going to try and figure out why Matthew's audio is bugging out. And also, we're going to address... Hey, there he is! Right at the nick of time. Ooh, that did not sound good. Can you try that again, Matthew? I hope y'all are hearing that, because that doesn't sound normal. Matthew, I think we've had the return of Robo Matt. Oh, that was like a B flat. Matthew, can you try that again? Y'all, I think Matthew is being hacked by the Russians in real life. It's Robo Matt! He is back! Robo Matt, can you talk for us again real quick? It sounds like my fax machine is getting a message right now. And we were actually saving this for Halloween, all jokes aside. And of course, I'm kidding. But, Matthew, real quick, I'm actually going to boot you from the call and call you again. And hopefully that will fix the problem. So real quick, I'm going to drag this over to our second screen. So that way y'all don't have to see all the behind-the-scenes stuff. So let me call Matthew back. Testing, testing. Can you hear me, Matthew? Testing, testing, testing. Hello? It seems like Matthew has now been lost to the void. I'm sorry, everyone. We're not supposed to be eating up this much time trying to fix technical glitches, but sometimes they do happen. And hopefully we can get this fixed somewhat here in the next minute. In case if you can hear me, Matthew, we cannot hear anything on your end right now. And if you want, you might want to upload everything onto the iPad and run over to my office real quick. There we go. He just scared the hell out of me, and he's behind me right now. So if y'all can hear him, we're going to be doing the polls and also the questions in kind of an odd way. But with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, folks. So hopefully you can hear me pretty decently. I actually ran off and left my phone in the other room, so I only have the most recent poll. So let's see here. The question on this poll is, given recent events, do you think the Russian-Ukraine war will come to an end in... It looks like 58% said a few months, 39%... I'm hearing myself talking for it. It's screwing me up really bad. Is there any way to turn that down?
I don't think there is. Are you listening? I would just mute the stream, honestly, at this point.
All right, so I think I fixed it right quick.
He just took off his headset. He's like, all right, I think I fixed it.
All right, so... On that poll, it looks like 58% said a few months,
39% said a few years, and 3% said a few weeks. So an overwhelming majority saying a few months, and I would have to tend to agree with that. I don't think it's going to take a few weeks. I think that's too short, and a few years might be a little too long. But Enforcer, what do you think?
I think your microphone's working. Because I'm hearing a reverb in your office. No, it's reverbing to them too. You might want to get in there and fix that. So let's wait for a minute, because this is going to be unhearable for y'all. Hang on, everyone.
All right. Can you hear me at all, Enforcer?
I can. I'm just testing to see if we have any reverb there. Sorry, everyone. Everything has gone absolutely end over end right now for some reason with the audio, but I can hear you, Matthew. Hello?
Maybe this fixed it?
Okay, that fixed it. Right. Oh, nope, it didn't. You're Robo Matt again, Matthew, if you can hear me. Can you go back to your crappier mic that works?
Okay, Enforcer, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, so I'm actually using my microphone in my headphones. I didn't even know it had that. So here we go. So I'm going to repeat the poll one more time because it's been all messed up. So the poll says, given recent events, do you think the Russia-Ukraine war will come to an end in? And it looks like 58% said a few months, 39% said a few years, and 3% said a few weeks. So pretty interesting results. An overwhelming majority say a few months, and I would tend to agree. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say it's most likely going to end in a few months. I would have to agree with the majority of y'all. I cannot see this war stretching on for years unless the Russians were to try and solidify their lines all over the place, which is impossible in some areas. And so I would have to agree with the large majority of y'all, the 58% that say it will most likely end in a few months. Now, Matthew, real quick, not to try and address these technical problems on stream, because I can see that a lot of people weren't really enjoying the technical problems, but have you seen if your cord is plugged in correctly to your microphone? Because it may be a problem with the cord not being plugged all the way in.
Oh, it's definitely plugged in right, but it looks like Discord's not interpreting the signal correctly for some reason.
Huh, that's weird. And so with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one if you have it, and if not, we're on to the questions.
All right, so we did have that one more poll, and I have my phone with me this time, so now I can see it. The last one said, do you think that the Ukrainian Air Force has performed well considering these circumstances? It looks like 92% said yes, they are doing a great job. 6% said somewhat, they are doing okay. And 2% said no, they haven't been effective. So a huge majority say that they are doing a great job. And I would tend to agree with that because the Ukrainian Air Force is not a huge Air Force, but they're doing a really good job. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that the Ukrainian Air Force has done an outstanding job. Of course, they haven't defended the entirety of Ukraine like some kind of a massive aerial shield, but that is too much to ask of an Air Force of Ukraine's size. It wasn't a large one starting off in this war, and seeing now that they are just absolutely blowing through both the Russian Air Force, Russian cruise missiles, Russian drones, and also conducting close air support missions now, that is everything you can expect from an Air Force like that. And of course, I'm blown away. And so I would have to agree with the 92% of y'all that said they have done impressively. I think they have done great. And so with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And with that, let's get to the questions.
All right, so moving into our super chats, it looks like up first, we have a $50 super chat from the legend BC Skyman, who says, have you heard of CLOX, which is a hemostatic agent? That is the #1 request from the soldiers on the front line to stop the bleeding. I wish there was some kind of way we could raise money. My friend Yuri has been there 3 times and delivered it to them personally.
And I thank you so much for the support, BC Skyman. That is an incredible request. And of course, you always have a personal connection to the war in Ukraine. And it's great. It's glad to have you back. I heard you were on a trip, some kind of a vacation. And I hope you enjoyed it. And welcome back to tonight's stream. It's always a pleasure to have you here. And you've been an old guard in the Discord. And also the YouTube channel as well. Certainly the YouTube channel. Moving on to address that, though. A hemostatic agent. If we pull that up real quick, I got to make sure I've heard of it and I've seen it before, but I got to make sure I'm thinking of the right thing. So, hemostatic agents. If I'm correct, they are the little square-shaped hemostatic.
It's the little granules that you put on a wound.
Like this thing here.
Let me see. I can't actually see it. I don't think you're screen sharing.
Oh yeah. Hang on. Let me screen share real quick. Like that right there?
Let's see. Hold on just a second. So that's actually CLOX gauze. I think he's talking about the little granules, the hemostatic granule packs.
Hemostatic.
Maybe he might be talking about the gauze potentially.
Granules. Like these.
Yes.
This pile of nefarious looking stuff.
There's also a different version called Quick Clot, but it's just basically the same thing in a different brand.
Got you. And of course, that would be incredibly important, I believe, if I'm correct. And correct me if I'm wrong, Matthew, because I don't know a lot about the hemostatics. But hemostatics are to stop or at least mitigate the effects of a sucking chest wound, if I'm correct.
I don't think you want to put CLOX into a chest wound, although I'm not really sure about that. But I don't think so. But I do know that it causes coagulation, which stops the bleeding faster.
So hemostatics are drugs that are administered intravenously during emergencies to reduce hemorrhage and prevent death from hemorrhage within a hospital setting or any pre-hospital situations. And so it's pretty much a coagulant. So I'm thinking of the wrong thing. I'm thinking of some other kind of, it's like this, for some reason, the whole time I was thinking of this square little thing that you put over a sucking chest wound that is sealed on 3 sides except for one, so it allows pressure out, but it doesn't allow pressure back in. I don't know what that's specifically used for the name of it, but that is really interesting to see that hemostatics, and of course it's kind of in the name, hemo means blood, and for some reason I didn't think of that, but it is pretty interesting to see that that's highly requested. I think we could probably run a fundraiser to help out with that. I think out of everyone who could help, it would either be Doctors Without Borders or Revive Soldiers of Ukraine. Not so much; they're more so into the recovery side of things. So I think if we wanted to help out with that, I think Doctors Without Borders would be our best bet. They not only do surgeries, but they also provide just raw materials to frontline soldiers, and I guess you could say first aid givers. You know, of course, like, they're not all paramedics or medics. Some people may just be giving first aid because they know how and they're not really a paramedic. And so with that, I will make sure that our next fundraiser tomorrow, BC Skyman, because of that, is for Doctors Without Borders, so that way we can try and help to get as much support in terms of hemostatics as we possibly could, while making sure that it still is within the YouTube Give system. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, BC Skyman. You've helped this channel to run so much, and through your support, our channel is able to keep on running and keep on covering this news until the end of the war. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again.
And also, I saw some people saying in the live chat that the Quick Clot and also Celox burns like hell when you use it. I have some in my like first aid kit, I guess you could say, but I've never had to use it. But man, from the sounds of it, it's not good. But I guess if it saves your life, that's a pretty good thing, obviously. But anyways, moving on to our next super chat, we have a $20 donation from White Lightning 777, who says, "Is Special Kherson Cat from Twitter liberated yet?"
I don't know if that cat has been liberated yet. I don't really know the specific one that you're talking about. We talked about Larry the cat last night, but that is the Chief Mouser on Downing Street, and I don't think that's the Kherson cat. At least it's several miles away. So I would have to say I don't really know on that one. I would have to declare ignorance, but it's an interesting question, to say the least, and I will try and look into it the best I can. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. Sadly, I don't think I'll be able to address that comment, but I will look into the Kherson cat and try and see if it has been liberated yet. And so thank you so much once again for the support, and we are on to the next one. I'm sorry we couldn't answer that question again.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from BSG Wolf, who says, "If Russia blows the dam, causes mass destruction, will that trigger U.S., British, or Polish forces? 101st is in Romania right now, question mark."
And thank you so much for the support. And that was actually pretty crazy. You threw in that super chat, BSG Wolf, before we even got to the 101st Airborne News. So we actually did cover that. They are ready at a moment's notice to cross the border. And I think that may be the U.S.'s subliminal way of telling the Russians that if anything does happen to that dam, U.S. forces are right there and they're ready. And so with that in mind, I would have to agree with you largely that that is pretty much the West's indirect way, while not having to say it through a diplomatic channel, that they will be marching into Ukraine tomorrow if anything happens to that dam. Of course, it always has to be accompanied for the large part by some kind of official diplomatic correspondence or statement, but in other ways, the message can be gotten across through more subliminal means, like the 101st Airborne being in Romania. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support, BSG Wolf, and I hope that does address the question fairly well. And I thank all of y'all so much for supporting this channel and, of course, helping us to keep it running. It means a lot to us, and, of course, this is the only way that we keep this channel running. We run ads on our videos, but we only come out with a video like once every month or two at this point, and so the only way we're able to support ourselves and keep running this channel is through y'all support. So I thank y'all so much for each of y'all being Lee Spring Army soldiers and, of course, helping us to keep the Lee Spring Army marching forward and to keep on covering this news full time. We will be focusing here in the future, probably within the next week, on making even more videos and even more content for y'all to enjoy. Some of it will be focusing directly on Ukraine, others will be focusing on things around Ukraine, and some stuff will be venturing into military history and other interesting topics that we thought all of y'all might enjoy to watch. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into our final segment of news for the night, and hopefully Matthew will have his audio problems fixed by then, and we're now going to be moving into the Northeast, the center, I guess you could say, around Bakhmut and Soledar, and finally the Donetsk region. Starting off around the town of Kreminna, which is the furthest north we can go today, we saw that the Russians slid off the road and they decided that that was enough to ditch a tank. Here's the video of this abandoned T-72. This guy needs to go to American Idol now. Oh, wait a minute. That is really American Idol. We're going to mute that. I thought that was someone singing in the car. But we see that that T-72B3 has been abandoned. And the Rasputitsa is horrendous. Good lord. I'm surprised that anyone's able to even drive a car on that. Look at that. Now, Matthew, I bet this will be a perfect time to see if your audio has fixed itself, but that looks horrendous, doesn't it? It hasn't. We'll keep on working on that in the background. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into our next clip, of course, noting the heavy Rasputitsa occurring in the area and the abandoned Russian tank. And we're now going to be moving towards Kreminna itself, where we saw that the Kraken unit is now dealing with the Russians as well. We're going to go over to Twitter real quick to watch this video, and here we go. Also, we have the conspiracy theory music playing as we watch this drone from the Kraken unit guide in artillery right onto the Russian forces. With that, the video now loops again, but I gotta say, I don't know about y'all, but I think that they're pretty orked out down there. And so with that, to cover the northeastern area, we haven't heard a lot of news north of Kreminna of any kind of activity going on whatsoever. Of course, I believe that this is entirely because the Ukrainians have paused their advance for now and are trying to reorganize and prepare their front lines again for another offensive, but we'll have to wait and see if that is true. Moving on beyond the Kreminna area, however, there hasn't been any news in the Bilo-Orivka or Verkno-Kamyanka area either. However, in Soledar, we have seen that the usual small simmering amount of activity has continued on even today, as we saw that a Ukrainian BTR-4 got out some pretty nice shots on a Russian BMP and was able to set it alight. So here's the video. And of course, the epic music, when you see the BTR-4 rounds hitting the BMP and immediately setting it on fire. The rounds continuing to shoot past the BMP, but the damage has already been done, and the BMP will burn down in time. With that, that's the end of that video, and once again, the BTR-4 is a beast of a vehicle. Not a lot was done to upgrade it, but the amount of upgrades that it did receive during that small amount of time made it one of the best APCs in the entirety of the Eastern European world. Just look at that thing and tell me that that is not a cool, absolutely knockout-looking APC. Also, the camo adds a whole lot to it. Don't know about y'all, but I'm kind of a big fan. With that, we're now going to be moving on from this little clip, from this little picture of this BTR-4 and also that video showing how effective they are, and we're now going to be moving down to Bakhmut proper itself, where we can see that Russian artillery has been hounding the Ukrainian forces, but these soldiers continue to hold the line and defend their positions from the Russian onslaught. When you hear the when you hear the Russian artillery coming down, and the Ukrainian, of course, making sure to take care of himself. Matthew's still having the audio problems that he's been having for the past hour. With that, that's the end of the video, but you can get an idea that the Ukrainian forces in this area endure countless bombardments day after day, shaking the ground, busting out their eardrums, yet they still hold the line against these Russians, and they will never let them gain another inch of ground on Ukrainian land. The only ground that will change hands at this point will be Russian-occupied ground going into Ukrainian hands. At that, we don't see any frontline movement in the area. Luckily, the Russians appear to still be conducting some small assaults towards Soledar and Bakhmut, but they haven't achieved any kind of progress whatsoever, and the front line is still where it was weeks ago. Moving on out of the Bakhmut and Soledar area and down towards Avdiivka and Pisky, we have seen some action occurring in between the Ukrainians and Russians. Firstly, we saw that the Ukrainians came under fire in this video from artillery somewhere near the front lines. We hear the artillery come in, and the soldiers, like reflex, get down on the ground to make sure that they don't get hit by any shrapnel. Of course, they don't really care too much because he's back up and running. Looks like he's got a Powerade in his hands. Of course, it's not, but still pretty cool to see that the Ukrainians are as calm and collected as ever, and that they also respond in a smart way to artillery landing nearby. They hit the ground and stay low. Moving on towards Pisky itself, we've also seen the Ukrainians advancing in this area. We don't know exactly where this was. We put it in Pisky, but it could have been anywhere on the Donetsk front. And so here's the video of a small advance being conducted by the Ukrainians here in this video. The video starts with a soldier running up to our cameraman, and our cameraman taking an anti-tank weapon and firing it down the road. Looks like that round had some range on it. We couldn't see where it landed, but we could hear it explode in the distance. We now see him firing another AT weapon. Hang on. We've seen this clip before. I'm sorry, everyone. It's one of those things where you see the first 30 seconds of the video and it's brand new, but then you get to this part and it's old. So I'm sorry about that, everyone, but that's actually a repeat of some footage that we saw before in the Donetsk region, probably about a week or two ago. And so with that, of course, the Donetsk region, now with that video being struck from today's news, which we'll delete, it's largely not moving. We saw that the Ukrainians took a little bit of fire, but beyond that, the defensive lines are as strong as they've ever been before, and they are still as solidified as ever. And so we'll most likely not see any frontline movements in this area, and even over the open plains of the south, just below Zaporizhia, we haven't seen any activity or movement here either. That's not unsurprising, however, because it's been like that for literally months at this point, and I don't believe that will be changing for an incredibly long time. And so with that, we have covered all of the frontline news from around Ukraine and all of the world news surrounding the war as well. And so we're now going to be moving to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Zelenskyy, and hopefully by the end of this, Matthew will have fixed his audio. And at this point, Matthew, considering we're going into a 7-minute and 16-second long speech, I would do everything. I would restart your audio. I would restart Discord, anything, because we have 7 minutes. Oh, it sounds like we got a little bit of something, but you still sound like a robot. And so with that,
it's the mic in the headset. I'm going to have to restart my entire computer, so I'll be back probably by the end of the speech. But if not, you'll probably hear me running back over there again.
Got you. And don't feel any pressure. I'll just keep it going until you can get the whole entire thing booted back up at the end of 7 minutes. And so, without further ado, here's a speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy.
Українки, продовжуємо ліквідацію наслідків сьогоднішніх ударів терористів по нашій інфраструктурі. Географія цього чергового масового удару дуже широка. Волинь, Одещина, Хмельницька область, Кіровоградська область, Дніпропетровщина, Рівненська область, Миколаївщина, Запорізька область і інші. Основна мішень терористів – енергетика. Тому зараз, будь ласка, ще уважніше, ніж раніше, ставтеся, будь ласка, до необхідності свідомо споживати електрику. Від кожного міста, кожного району України залежить стабільність роботи енергетики всієї нашої держави. Будь ласка, обмежуйте роботу техніки, яка споживає багато електрики. І особливо у годину пікового споживання вранці і ввечері. Будь ласка, звертайте увагу на повідомлення від місцевої влади та енергокомпаній про те, що коли можуть бути стабілізаційні відключення на вашій вулиці чи у вашому районі. Плануйте свій день, враховуючи цю інформацію. На частині території нашої держави, де електрика була відключена внаслідок сьогоднішнього удару, вже вдалося відновити енергопостачання. Частково в Одеській області, частково на Хмельницькій землі електрику вже повернули. Рівненщина в більшості відновили, є позитивні звіти також з інших областей. Але у багатьох містах, у багатьох районах відновлювальні роботи ще тривають. Намагаємось якнайшвидше повернути людям світло. Я хочу подякувати усім, хто задіяний у цій роботі, енергетикам, працівникам комунальних служб, місцевого самоврядування, урядовцям та бізнесу, який також допомагає. Всі разом ми зараз показуємо, що українське життя неможливо зламати, навіть якщо ворог і може залишити нас тимчасово без світла, йому все одно ніколи не вдасться залишити нас без прагнення виправити все, полагодити і повернути до норми. І навіть зараз, частково у темряві, життя в нашій державі, в нашій Україні все одно цивілізоване, на відміну від Росії, яка несе нам цей терор. У них там із електрикою все одно дикість, як в прадавні часи. Тільки дикуни можуть нести таке зло світу. Я хочу підкреслити, ані цей удар терористів, ані будь-які інші подібні їхні удари не зупинять наших захисників. Російські пропагандисти брешуть, коли кажуть, що нібито цей терор проти нашої інфраструктури і людей може якось загальмувати активні дії наших військових чи створити якісь складнощі нашій обороні. Українці об'єднані і точно знають, що у Росії немає шансів виграти в цій війні. Наші сили оборони отримують все необхідне для захисту держави і щоденно, я підкреслюю, щоденно просуваються вперед. Непогані результати демонструють і наші повітряні сили. Звичайно, у нас ще немає технічної здатності збивати 100% російських ракет і ударних дронів. Поступово ми прийдемо і до цього за допомогою наших партнерів, я впевнений. Але вже зараз більшість крилатих ракет, більшість дронів збиваємо. Тільки за першу половину цієї доби збито 20 ракет калібрів і Х-101, також більше 10 іранських шахедів. В черговий раз хочу сьогодні подякувати нашим воїнам, винищувачам, зенітникам повітряного командування «Захід», «Південь» і «Центр», а також мобільним вогневим групам усіх сил оборони за врятовані життя наших людей і збережену інфраструктуру України. Готуємо ґрунт для того, щоб поширити світову санкційну політику на усіх російських пропагандистів, так званих лідерів думок і представників шоу-бізнесу, які підтримують цей терор. Міжнародна робоча група з цих питань, з питань санкцій проти Росії, яку очолюють Майкл Макфол і Андрій Єрмак, підготували дорожню карту індивідуальних санкцій. Підготувала базовий перелік усіх тих, хто причетний до поширення наративів, без яких російський терор неможливий. Маємо чітко оцінювати таку інформаційно-емоційну складову терору. Російська армія програє і відступає на полі бою, а тому результати терору проти нашого цивільного населення та інфраструктури подаються російською пропагандою як замінник військових перемог. Також різні російські інформаційники та зірки залучені до виправдовування злочинної спроби анексії нашої території і мобілізації на війну проти нас, проти України. Абсолютно всі такі особи мають отримати повний пакет індивідуальних санкцій, щоб взагалі нічого не могли робити у світі. Працюємо над цим. Дуже добре Україна була представлена цього тижня у Франкфурті на найбільшому в Європі і одному з найбільших у світі книжкових ярмарок. Це не просто подія для видавничого бізнесу і письменників. Це один із ключових європейських дискусійних майданчиків і впливова інформаційна подія. Перша леді України представила там свої проекти підтримки освіти і культурної сфери, зокрема ініціативу «Книжки без кордонів». Це забезпечення дітей наших вимушених переселенців книгами українською мовою. Також проект «Українська книжкова поличка», що представлено вже у 20 країнах світу. Загалом у франкфуртському ярмарку взяли участь більше 40 українських видавництв, відомі письменники, відомі публіцисти, історики. Я дякую всім, хто працював у Франкфурті, за те, що Україну там почули і зрозуміли. Кожен внесок у світову підтримку України життєво важливий. Я дякую всім, хто працює і допомагає заради нашої перемоги. Вічна Слава усім, хто воює за Україну. Слава нашому незламному народу. Слава Україні!
And with that, that's the end of the video. And that, of course, wraps up our day 242 news summary. And, of course, it is the end of our news segment for the night. We're about to go into our question segment. So if you have thrown in a live chat question, make sure to stick around. And if you've thrown in a super chat, we make sure to address every single person that supports this channel. We've had a load of new people come in tonight. And I want to thank each and every one of y'all so much for watching. If you did enjoy the news segment alone, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribing and liking these videos are probably the two things that help out this channel the most. It lets YouTube know that this news is enjoyable and that it should be spread to more people that may be interested in this as well. And so make sure to subscribe and also make sure to hit the like button on this video. We've gotten 2,710 likes, and I've got to say, that's quite a good number, but maybe we can get it up to 3,000 and maybe 4,000 before the end of the night, but who really knows? And so with that, we are now going to be moving on into our question segment and also addressing any of the polls that we've had running over the past news segment. And so with that, let's see if Matthew's audio is working. How is it working now, Matthew?
Can you hear me at all?
Oh, wait a minute. Just sing the Mary Had a Little Lamb song real quick.
I don't know if I can do that, but can you hear me
We
at all?
can! We can hear them! Let's go! We won't be able to do that where we're moving, Matthew, but hey, we can do it for now.
All right, so with that being said, as the old saying used to go, let me see if I can try to get over here to my spreadsheet. For some reason, my Mac has decided to go weird tonight. But anyways, Enforcer, have you addressed any of these super chats yet?
We have not. We have actually just been rounding out tonight's stream, and we can get into the polls if we had any, and the questions if you're ready.
All right, so no polls for obvious reasons. Unfortunately, I hate that because usually I run 2 more, but I'll make up for them tomorrow night during our fundraiser stream. But nonetheless, we're going to move on into our super chats, and up first, we have a $60 donation from Garrett Lowe. And thank you very much, Garrett, for that very generous support. He says, why has Putin not named a successor? He's old as dirt and is a marked man. Is it possible no one wants the job, LOL? Slava Ukraine.
And I thank you so much for the support, Garrett Lowe. And also, that's a pretty good question. He has not appointed a successor, and that's kind of odd. Usually, there's always some kind of line of succession in every single country, even in democratically elected ones like the United States, where if the president was to die or something was to happen to him, there would be someone who would immediately take his place. In Russia, it's kind of expected that that guy would be appointed pretty much, and then he would win a landslide election right after being appointed. But it seems like Putin really hasn't picked anyone for that job. Now, of course, there's a lot of reasons why Putin may not have picked any successors, because he's scared that once he does, that successor will have reason to plot to overthrow or have him killed, and that may be the reason why he hasn't picked one. Unfortunately, beyond that, I can't really get into Putin's head a whole load well, I really can't at all. I'm nowhere near him, and also I wouldn't want to. I feel like some of that nastiness and germs would get on me if I tried to get in his head, but still... it's an interesting question and one worth asking for sure. Now, I can say this though. Everyone in the Russian government probably wants that job. They probably dream of being in that position. It's just that Putin probably wants none of them to have the idea that there would be a chance of them getting that position if something was to happen to him. And so with that, and also another thing, speaking of which, historically, there hasn't been a successor for the Soviet premier. The Soviet premier was really more of a battle of the inner party to figure out who in the inner party of the Soviet Union would become the leader of the Soviet Union, the premier. And that never really had an actual succession line, and the sitting premier would never really appoint a successor. I believe that only happened in rare instances. Like, for example, with Lenin. Lenin actually said that Stalin shouldn't be the leader of the Soviet Union, yet he became one. Stalin had he died of a stroke, so he really didn't have any kind of pick when it came to Khrushchev. That was all inner fighting in the party. There was no successor for Stalin. Stalin was it. And that's pretty much been the way it was for all Soviet premieres, and I think that Putin is running that in pretty much the same way. And so with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well, and thank you so much, Garrett Lowe, for the incredible support. It helps out this channel a lot, it helps us to keep the lights on, and helps us to keep on running. And so with that, thank you so much for being a longtime member of the Lee Spring Army, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and next up, we have another $50 super chat from none other than BC Skyman, who says, yes, we had a great hunting trip with my Ukrainian buddies. Please answer a question in the live chat, and Slava Ukraine.
Hey, well, I thank you so much once again for the support, BC Skyman. And of course, I'm glad you had a little fun hunting trip. Of course, I've actually never been hunting. I've been interested in it at times, but you know, it's something that I've never really had the chance to do. None of my family are hunters, mostly because for the most part, they grew up kind of like in a city, you know, like they were either in a city or on the edge of a city, so they never really had the chance to go hunting. So I never really got an opportunity to do that, although we did live in the country for almost my whole life. They just never really did it, so I never really did it either. But I'm glad she had fun, and I wonder, of course, you don't have to tell us, you know, if you want to keep a secret, let us know. But where did you go hunting? Because there, of course, you can hunt all over the United States, and it's very different from place to place. Like I saw a video on YouTube at a time of someone hunting pronghorn deer in Colorado, and it looked really beautiful out there, and also the pronghorn are a really neat looking animal. But still, I thank you so much for the support, BC Skyman, and I'm so glad to hear that you had a fun hunting trip, and that you're back! And so, of course, in your honor, I am going to make sure that we answer that live chat. And so what do we got for the live chat, Matthew?
All right, and the live chat question goes to the Truth Teller, sponsored by BC Skyman, who says, what do you guys think of an amphibious assault in Vasilivka and Heroidsky? Take that small peninsula and get behind Kherson.
And I thank you for the question. Now, I believe you're talking about Ukrainian offensive plan, if I'm correct, Matthew. Can you reread that for me again?
What do you guys think of an amphibious assault in Vasilivka and Heroidsky? Take that small peninsula and get behind Kherson.
Very interesting idea. I don't know if you and me are talking about the same Vasilivka. There is Vasilivka right there in Heroidsky. It's an interesting idea. However, I do believe there would be some limitations geographically with it. First, this appears to be some kind of a marshy-ish swamp, and that would pose a lot of problems to any kind of logistics trying to create this as a basing point. Maybe the town, no, not even the town hardly. I mean, like, if you look at that, that is all soggy marshland, and it would be very difficult to get a supply truck fully loaded onto the beach and then get it onto a road, because it looks like all the roads here are dirt as well. And at this time of year with the Rasputitsa, I'm fairly certain it wouldn't be able to travel far. And so everything here would have to be done with manpower alone. Not even a vehicle could probably make it in here. And so it's an interesting idea. I think if it wasn't for that limitation, it would be a very viable one. But still, that swampy marshland, you can really see it on just the, I guess you could say, the, what is that called? The terrain view of the Earth imagery. It doesn't look like it would be all too suitable for a logistical chain to keep that force running, but it still, in terms of the geography, it's a very good idea. And so with that, I hope that addresses that question fairly well. And also, thank you so much once again, BC Skyman, for the support and being a veteran of the Lee Spring Army, and also sponsoring that live chat. That's an incredibly kind trend that I mean, it happened so long. It feels like it happened so long ago, but it really only happened like 2 months ago. Who started it, Matthew? Because I have it within a couple of names, but I can't remember which one exactly started it.
I honestly can't remember for the life of me. It's one of the regulars, though.
I feel like it was Zyper Sniper.
I think it might have been.
I mean, like, that was an incredibly kind thing that Zyper Sniper started, and since then, it's become a common tradition and a habit amongst a lot of supporters of this channel to support us, but also make sure to have someone else's live chat answered. And I thank you so much, BC Skyman, for continuing on that incredibly kind tradition, and of course, helping us to keep this going, so that way we can keep on thanking people for being so kind to both the fundraisers and, of course, this channel. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $25 super chat from Marie Nipfer, who says, first-time listener, good show, and go Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support. And also, thank you for being a first-time listener. Of course, tonight, for some reason, we had a lot of new viewers join on, and it looks like we've gotten a lot of brand new subscribers. In fact, it's one of our largest days over the past week. Right now, we've got...
Enforcer, you know what I think it's attributed to?
What?
I think that check mark next to the name is doing it.
I think it is. I think
it is.
I don't really know. Is it? Or are a lot of y'all subscribing and watching because of the check mark? Let us know. Because I would be interested to know the actual story behind why we're getting so many subscribers tonight. But we've gotten a pretty decent amount. And I'm glad to know that a lot of y'all are enjoying this channel. I'm glad y'all just found it today. No better time than the present, eh? And thank you so much for supporting this channel. Of course, a lot of new viewers may not know, but unlike other channels, where we have a PayPal or a Patreon. We do have a Patreon, but that's for videos. So we took it off of the live streams, and once we make videos, we'll probably be putting it up in the description of those videos, because it's just, we're trying to make sure that the videos are supported off of their own budget and not off of the streams in a way. But we don't get any support through anything other than Super Chats. So if you send in a Super Chat, that is the only way we make anything off of this and make a living, so that way we can keep on doing this and covering this war until it ends. We don't run any ads either, you know, just in case if anyone's asking, like, oh, do you run ads? We don't run ads on these streams, so the only way we support these and keep them running is through your support. So I thank you so much for throwing one in, and of course, first time watching, which is the most impressive thing. And so I thank you so much both for joining the Lee Spring Army, and in case if you don't know what that is, I'm sure the live chat will most likely fill you in on the story, or if y'all join the Discord, which there's a link in the description below, you can join the entire Enforcer community, and they will probably tell you what the Lee Spring Army means, the whole history behind it, and what this channel has done, and how far we've come. And so thank you so much once again for helping out this channel, and I'm glad that you just joined us today. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $25 super chat from the Duncan VR, who says, Baba, Moo Ba, Larry the cat, meow, meow, found a new friend, Matthew the cat, meow, ba. Along came Vladimir the sheep, ba ba ba. Matt and Larry said meow, row, meow, and Vladimir self-destructed with a ba ba, oink, oink, meow, 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 meow.
What in the world? Thank you for the support, Duncan VR. There are so many animal noises in that. I don't even think we're supposed to take meaning from that. I think it's just raw torture for Matthew still. And so with that, I think
I gotta appreciate like the effort it took to type all that out too, because he put like specific noises in there.
I gotta be honest with you. I've gotta appreciate the commitment that Duncan VR has to putting those in. He's been doing that for like hundreds of days at this point, and at some point, it's not even about the torture anymore. It's just about the commitment to the bit. And I've got to say, Duncan VR has got commitment to the bit. I love it, and I thank you so much once again for the support, Duncan VR, and also for allowing Matthew to be tortured once more. And so thank you so much once again. I hope we were able to address that comment fairly well, and I hope you got what you were looking for. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and moving on to our next one, we have a $20 super chat from Moidy Movies, who does not leave a comment. But Moidy, thank you very much for the donation. I know you've been around for quite some time. I see everybody in the live chat saying that Enforcer Matt is getting good. Duncan loves to put me through the ringer. It's always like a challenge for me to see if I can get through all the animal noises here. But I see a lot of people in the live chat saying cringe.
Oh, and real quick, actually, this was a great point that was brought up. Ted B said, should mention the old live streams and how they are now getting commercials. Great point. We don't make a dime off of those. You know why? Because we get content ID'd because of the Ukrainian anthem we're playing. And so to make sure that we don't have ads playing on stuff in the future, and people are going, hey, why are there ads running on this stuff? You're a liar. When we're not even making any kind of revenue off of them, and it's the copyright holder of that song, that's why we had to switch out the anthem, so that way ads wouldn't run on these videos. And on top of that, if you do watch any of our streams and there is an ad running on them, we don't make a cent off of that, because that was done by someone else. That content ID'd something in our video. And so with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well, Ted B, because that was that would be a bit of a misnomer, because we didn't have any kind of consent or option running those ads. YouTube told us, hey, we're content IDing it. This guy over there in Nowheresville, he's going to be getting all of the ad revenue from everyone who watches this video from here forward. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And also, thank you so much, real quick, Matthew, before we move on. I got to thank Moity for his support. And also, another funny thing I was thinking, Matthew, is that Moity sounds like the way a New Yorker would say Morty. You know, like, hey, Moity, come over here.
Yes.
And so with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again, Moity, for the support. And of course, thank you so much for being a great New Yorker.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Mark Thompson, who says, as a former member of the 82nd Airborne Division, I respectfully disagree. The 101st is the best American ABN unit.
And I thank you for the support. And I mean, like, the 80... Oh, man. Now I've started it, haven't I, Matthew? Oh, no. Oh, no.
What happened?
You see, the thing is that the 82nd Airborne is very similar, if not comparable, to the 101st. So we now have an 82nd Airborne veteran who is going to combat us and challenge us and say that the 101st isn't the best, it's the 82nd Airborne. Now, I got to be honest with y'all, I've actually met, I believe, 2 people in real life that were in the 82nd Airborne. I have never met anyone that was in the 101st Airborne. Don't know why. I really can't explain why. But still, I mean, like, it's pretty cool to hear that you were in the 82nd Airborne Division. Really neat one. And of course, it has about as distinguished a history, if not as good, as the 101st Airborne. And so, I will concede on that, considering that you do have actual experience and you have a bit of a bias as well. I would have to say 82nd Airborne is as good, if not better, than the 101st. And someone said 101st isn't even airborne. It's so that... Thank you so much once again for the support, Mark Thompson. And thank you for clarifying that for us real quick. If someone's from the 101st and wants to argue with that, we will sponsor a fight in between the veterans of the 101st and the 82nd and live stream it. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support, Mark Thompson, and also adding in your 2 bits to that comment.
All right. And up next, we have a $15 super chat from DL Hemingway, who says, Putin has only got 1 ball. Medvedev has 2, but very small. Patrushev is rather similar, but poor old Mishustin has no balls at all.
Man, DL Hemingway pulling out the rhymes, Matthew. He's pulling them out. I gotta say right there, that's a pretty good one. Also, that one's based off of the Colonel Bogey March. The Colonel Bogey March is that song that goes dun 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 dun. And I know that's a terrible way to make it sound, but still, y'all get the point. Y'all know the song now. And so y'all may remember his Comet, it makes your mouth so clean, Comet. You know, and then, of course, there's the other one that came out in World War II from the British, where they're like, Goring has only got 1 ball, Himmler's got 2, but very small. And so that's what he's making a play on. And I gotta say, DL Hemingway, quite the way to make an entrance into tonight's stream. And of course, thank you for the support, and also a sick rhyme that is quite relevant as well. And so with that, thank you once again. I will be waiting for your SoundCloud to come out any minute now. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for helping to keep this channel running, and also for being a longtime member of the Lee Spring Army and a veteran. And with that, and a veteran of the Lee Spring Army. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
And next up, a big shout out to Jamie Gaddy for putting in a $20 donation. Jamie didn't leave a comment, but we do appreciate the support nonetheless. And Enforcer, would you like to add a few words?
Yes, I would. Here today, we gather to mourn the loss of Jamie Gaddy. Of course, I'm just kidding.
Mourn the loss? What happened?
Yeah, you said say a few words. That's what they say at a funeral.
Oh.
Well, thank you so much for the support, Jamie Gaddy. You didn't throw in a comment, but the support says a lot. It says that you enjoyed this stream and you want it to keep running. And we always want to make sure that we can keep this stream running, and through your support, we are able to. And so with that, thank you so much once again. It does mean a lot to us, and your support speaks volumes about how much you enjoy this channel, and I thank you heavily for that. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Blue Flam 777, who says, Putin woken up at 3 a.m. by his staff. Sir, wake up. The Ukrainians want to talk about capitulation. Very well, put them through on the phone. No need, sir. They're right behind the door.
Oh, dang, that was pretty good. I actually didn't see that coming, Matthew. What about you?
I didn't either.
That was solid. Okay, everyone, you got to give Jonathan Smith a huge like round of applause. I know we can't do that in the
Jonathan
live chat.
Smith.
Yeah.
You mean Blue Flame 777?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. I'm sorry, everyone. Let me explain.
Wait a minute. Are you looking at the iPad?
Yes, I'm looking at the iPad.
Oh, yeah, it updates like after I click it.
Yeah, so you turned it red, and so I looked down at the next one.
And by the way, folks, whenever there's an accident that happens or like a issue with the stream, I'll usually bring over like my second screen, which is my iPad, and hand it to the enforcer so that way he can read off the super chat. So that's what he's doing.
Yes. So I'm sorry, everyone. Matthew actually clicked the box red on Blue Flam's sick raw line, and so I went down to the next one and I read Jonathan Smith on accident. We're going to get to yours next, just letting you know. But Blue Flam, that was raw. Right there. That was a really good original joke. And I gotta say, everyone, give a huge round of support and applause to Blue Flam 777, who threw in that joke, and that was pretty freaking good. I see the names on the sheet, and of course I'm now referencing it on the iPad whenever I need to go back. And of course, that was a good one. I gotta say, that was the best joke I've heard in a while. And so thank you so much once again for the support, Blue Flame 777, and also completely blowing me away with the originality. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and up next, we now have that $10 super chat from Jonathan Smith, who says, I hoped they would have forced the Russians' forces in Kherson to surrender. That would have been a knockout blow, but now they will condense their forces and make this another half-year grind. F.
I was reading that one as you were reading it. I saw the end before you got to it. I was like, huh, it's like, that's weird. I was like, is he going to read that off? And he just said F. And of course, thank you for the support, Jonathan Smith. It means a lot to us. Are you the John Smith at the Jamestown colony? I would be interested to know. But moving on from that, they couldn't really have forced the Russian forces to surrender unless if they had encircled them. And based off of the geography of the area, that would have been impossible, pretty much. And so the best thing that they could do was to pull what they've done now. Honestly, the Ukrainians have pulled. And a lot of people are going to love this. Maybe a lot of new viewers will be like, what the hell? They pulled a Mike Tyson because I got them all hyped up before the fight. And then they were sitting there and they was all freaked out. So they just ran away. That was a terrible Mike Tyson. I'm sorry, everyone. But anyways, moving on back to the comment. The Ukrainians did a great psychological job on the Russians this time because it was so good that they actually left Kherson. And so with that, I think that them retreating is about as good as it can get, because with them retreating, they're now creating a Dunkirk situation where all of their equipment is left behind for the Ukrainians to use at a later date. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Jonathan Smith. And of course, I thank you so much for helping out this channel and being a Lee Spring Army soldier. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right, and up next, we have another super chat from Blue Flame 777, who this time puts in a $10 donation and says, how many Russian soldiers does it take to take Kyiv? You don't know. It's okay. Even Putin hasn't figured it out yet, and Slav Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support, Blue Flame 777. And he is coming in here with the raw jokes. This stuff would make a 1 hour special on Comedy Central. This is quality. And I gotta thank you so much for the support, Blue Flame 777, and also coming up with just the rawest jokes tonight. These are good, and they're relevant. And of course, I would have to say that I don't think anyone's figured that out either. I think the only people who may have figured that out were the Germans in World War II, but that was only for a fleeting moment. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Blue Flame 777, and also everyone, once again, give a huge LOL and also a huge thank you to Blue Flame 777, both for being a longtime channel supporter and also for some pretty sick jokes. I thought that was a really smart and creative one as well, and keep them up because I'm loving them. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again.
All right, and next up, we have a $10 super chat from Max as well as WL, and they both say, thank you for the work that you do.
And thank you so much for the support that you give, Max, because through your support, this work is possible. And so,
and also WL.
Also W. Wait a minute, you covered them both at the same time?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I saw you click red on that one. I was like, I think he skipped ahead. But thank you to both of you, Max, and WL, for both of y'all's support. It does mean a lot to us, and I thank you so much for enjoying the work we do. And of course, this work is not possible without y'all's support. Of course, without it, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. And so I thank both of y'all so much once again for helping us to keep this thing rolling. And of course, I thank you for the support you give so I can keep doing the work I do. And so with that, I thank you once again, and we are on to the next one. And of course, I want to make sure that y'all both know it's both to Max and WL. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Cardiel4, who says, Enforcer, been here since day week 2 and love the stream. Anyways, if the Russians are about to lose the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, would the Russians cause a meltdown or blow it up? Also, what Mac model did Matt bought? And I think it is the Mac Pro. I think it's the M1 chip, the M1 Pro, I think. It's the 16-inch, so that way I can see all the different screens I need to see on this laptop. But it works pretty good most of the time. It's a hell of a lot better than my old one, but it has an occasional glitch with the audio. I don't know what causes it, but restarting the computer fixes it. But anyways, Enforcer, I'll let you handle the rest of that one.
All right, so to get to the part that I can answer, now that we've gotten to the part that Matthew can answer, also, Matthew, I really like the setup where I can read the actual question because it makes it a lot easier.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, like it makes it a lot easier for me to reference it again because just in case we all don't know, I'm looking at the live chat a lot as well, and so I'll hear the question, and if Matthew answers his part first, I usually don't have a reference in front of me, and so I have to usually ask him to read it again, so that way I know. But with this pad in front of me, I can actually sit here and just read off the question and make sure to keep track of what I should be answering. So now with that in mind, Cardio 4, it's time to answer my part. So if the Russians were about to lose the Enerhdar plant, I don't believe they would cause a meltdown. Of course, the Russians don't really give anyone the confidence that they wouldn't try and pull off some kind of nefarious crap because they just do it all the time. But I feel like they wouldn't do that because, of course, that could be construed quite negatively by the West. Because we already made it clear that if something like that happens, we will probably get involved. They're trying to avoid getting the West involved because then that's a immediate loss of the war for them, even if it was recoverable at this point. And then that would most likely inevitably lead to a nuclear war. And so I don't think they would put it into a meltdown if the Ukrainians were on the verge of taking it. I think they would most likely try and sabotage as much as they could without causing it to melt down and then leave. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the support and also helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Sausage Gravy Biscuit, who says, Slav Ukraine, have you noticed the difference in individual equipment and provisioning between the sides? Huge difference. Great work, guys, from your favorite breakfast food.
And thank you so much, Sausage Gravy Biscuit. 1 second, everyone. I've got to pull up a Sausage Gravy Biscuit. Biscuit. Oh, these things are so good. Oh, man, look at that. It's making me hungry right now, actually. Man.
Tasty.
Bob Evans actually makes a sausage gravy biscuit that you can microwave up, and for some reason it is just killer good. I haven't had it in stores around here lately. For some reason they don't stock them anymore, but they were so freaking good. I used to eat those for breakfast a lot when they were around. Now, to answer that sausage gravy biscuit, and of course, thank you for the support, I have noticed the difference, and that's one thing that we always harp on this channel a lot about. The Russian forces always look poorly equipped. They're using outdated uniforms, outdated guns, outdated gear, outdated everything. And while they're doing that, at the same time, the Ukrainians are using some of the most advanced equipment we've ever seen at this point. And of course, I've got to say, the disparity in between the two is massive, even down to their food. The Ukrainian soldier has a much more varied and also more luxurious diet than a Russian soldier could ever even imagine. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well, Sausage Gravy Biscuit, and thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. It means a lot to us, and I'm glad that you do enjoy it and want to see us to continue until the end of this war. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again.
All right. And did y'all see that bot that was just in this chat? And let's see what he said again. It was a guy in the chat. He's definitely a Russian bot.
Can I read it real quick?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
JJ Clem said, "Lost a war? Question. Russia's been fighting NATO for 8 months and they winning."
No, they losing.
No, they losing, buddy. Look at that right there and tell me they're winning. No, they ain't. Oh,
And
man.
since when have they been fighting NATO?
Yeah, when have they been doing, that's the typical Russian line. We're not just fighting Ukraine, we're fighting the world. It's like, okay, then why aren't you marching into Estonia right now, bozo? It's like, answer that for me. But they can't, because obviously it's just all a farce. And also, I can't believe that, and because sometimes, believe it or not, while we call them bots, some of these are real people. I cannot believe that some real people are that delusional that they can watch the Russian army start using weapons from the Cold War, like the 50s, and sit there and go, the Russians are winning. It's like, no, they're not. It's like, it doesn't outrage me, but it completely baffles me, the stupidity of some people. And these specific people, I mean, like, even if you do support Russia for whatever reason, you should be able, because even the Russian propagandists can look at the situation now and say, yeah, we're losing. Why in the world can some people not? And I mean, like, most of them, from what I've seen, are here in America. And I've got this whole entire thing, and, I'm not going to go through it, but I feel like a lot of the American public on both sides, this is an equal critique, are disconnected from reality, and they just believe whatever without really a lot of support for anything. It's not really a lot of people, it's actually quite a small amount, but their disconnect is so big that it seems massive. It's kind of like flat earthers. It's like, how in the world can you be that disconnected? Where you sit, like, have you seen that thing that they did with Elon? Speaking of someone who's had a lot of infamy so far in the war.
And what thing did they do?
The Flat Earth Society and what they said to Elon.
I don't think so.
So Elon said, I wonder if there's a Flat Mars Society out there. And so the Flat Earth Society on Twitter responded to Elon's tweet and said, yes, there is not one, and we would not support one because, you see, Mars has been observed to be round.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's like they observed that Mars is round. Now, for some reason, out of all the planets in the solar system, only the Earth is flat.
You know why they observed it to be round?
Why?
Because they looked through a telescope and saw it, but yet they're standing on Earth and they think it's flat because they can't see it through a telescope.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty true. But then again, I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like it would be at least enlightening for a few. What if we loaded them onto a rocket and sent them into orbit so that way they could see the Earth is round and then come back and tell all the other flat earthers, guys, it's round. It's literally round. Because I bet you they would say that, or at least take them high enough.
I think the problem goes deeper than that.
I mean, probably, maybe. But with that, we are on to the next one. And of course, thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from the Leaf Spring Army. Really cool username. I always love seeing it. They say, Ukraine, my love, never going to give you up. I'm not even going to sing that. It's going to be cringe. Never going to give you up. Never going to let you down. Never going to run around and desert you. Never going to make you cry. Never going to say goodbye. Never going to tell a lie and hurt you. Slava Ukraine, LSA, and NAFO. Oh, it's a NAFO fellow.
Hey, NAFO! Lee Spring, but wait a minute, the Lee Spring Army's name is literally Lee Spring Army. He can't be a NAFO member. Lee Spring Army comes first, for him at least.
He has dual membership.
He's a dual citizen. And thank you so much for the support, Lee Spring Army. And we literally just got rickrolled, and Matthew helped in the process. Never gonna give you up. Wait, hang on, let me read it like that auto machine that reads off stuff. Never going to give you up. Never going to let you down. Never going to run around and desert you. Because
that would actually be a real hit, I think.
I mean, maybe. I wonder if someone's done that out there. That's a great question. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Lee Spring Army. And also, thank you for rickrolling us as well. Usually, not a lot of people are appreciative of being rickrolled, but I think that's the first time that's happened to our channel, and I think that's pretty funny. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $7 super chat from Alan Sanderson, who says, can we donate to a Ukrainian choir or orchestra to commission an LSA-owned intro song?
That's a great question, and I actually found out how much it is to rent an orchestra for 2 hours. $12,000. And so I think that we would probably not be able to do that just because the funds wouldn't be there. Because we could try and do a fundraiser for it, but I don't really feel like that's what our fundraisers are for, because that would be really selfish of me instead of taking like that $12,000 and having all of y'all put it towards something that's helping out Ukrainian soldiers or citizens like UNHCR or Doctors Without Borders, we would be putting $12,000 towards a 1 minute and 30-second anthem at the beginning of our video. I feel like that wouldn't be the proper use of the Lee Spring Army's energy, and so I would do that, but the cost is very prohibitive. That's, of course, kind of the limiting factor with what we can do with songs and such things, is that it just gets really expensive to get anything involved with orchestra or music production. And I saw someone say, get an arts grant. I don't think we have those in America for that kind of reason, and also it's for a business, so I don't really think we could do that. You could get a high school band for about $500, but would we?
Oh man, now I've heard high school bands. We were in one at one point, and I mean, it's gonna be all right, but it's probably not gonna be something you want to play like to a lot of people. They're gonna critique the hell out of it. I can tell you that right now.
Oh yeah, they would. So I don't think we want to do that, but I would. It's a cool idea, Alan, but sadly, I just don't think it's possible due to the budgetary limitations. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support and so much for a pretty good idea. I mean, while it's not possible, it was still worth a shot, and I thought it was a pretty nice idea. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And everyone, like, and I saw Surprised to say, thanks for looking into it. I've been looking into every single way we could try and get a Ukrainian anthem back. And I think we've got one right now that will do fairly well. We might try and alter it a little bit. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again, Alan, for the support and a pretty decent idea.
All right. And next up, we have a $7 super chat from Martin Bridge, who says, thank you guys for your work. I always watch your streams as much as I can. Here's to all the Kherson watermelons getting liberated in the next few days.
Hey! Oh, that was a good one. Thank you so much for the support, Martin. And I have to agree entirely. Here is to all of the Kherson watermelons. They're now out of season, but they're still getting liberated, at least the fields that they're in. And so I've got to thank you so much for the support. Thank you for enjoying the work we do. And of course, you help us out a lot through that support to keep this going. And of course, not to sound like PBS, but thank you, the taxpayer, for your support to this channel. We don't get supported by taxpayer funds, though. We get supported through super chats. And so thank you so much once again, Martin, for your support. And thank you for helping us out. And also, I cannot wait to have the taste of a Kherson watermelon back around the world, or at least in Ukraine again. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much for the support, Martin. And thank you for being a Lee Spring Army soldier.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Cade Riddle, who says, this is a good day.
And this is CBS News. I can't say that, actually. I don't think I can. But I thank you for the support, Cade
We
Riddle.
can't even say that? Was that like a copyright issue?
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to run the risk of it, because if it is, then we could kind of get in a little bit of a bit of a problem. So
Man, that would be a parody. That would be fair use.
Also, Tanks a Lot said PBS is donation funded.
I think it is.
Let me check.
Partially, at least.
Because I know that PBS gets tax dollars. Is PBS taxpayer funded? Upwards of 15% of its money comes from the federal government. So 50% of its, I guess you could say, running costs are paid for by the U.S. federal government, meaning the taxpayer, or thin air, depending on where they come up with the money. So with that,
that's lower than I thought. To be honest, I thought it was higher. Actually,
it is. That's actually really interesting to me. But they do get $222 million of direct grants from the government, so it's not really a small amount. It's actually quite large. Hang on, let's go and look at this real quick. PBS. So let's see here. Scroll down. Annually, 86% of all U.S. households watch PBS. Wow, that's actually a lot. Geez, wow, that's impressive, actually. So with that, that's interesting to see. Also, Mr. Rogers actually saved the PBS network in the 60s when the government was actually largely funding PBS and was going to cut their funding completely to them. He went in front of Congress, and he was such a genuine, upstanding guy that they actually doubled their funding to PBS because of Mr. Rogers. Well, specifically Fred Rogers. But with that, we are going to be moving on to the next one. And of course, to get back to Cade Riddle's super chat, today was a good day for sure. And the days ahead in the Kherson area are only going to be looking better, because it'll only be a short while from now that we'll see the Ukrainian flag flying over the town, or the city of Kherson, the jewel and the pearl of the Dnipro River. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Robert Massey III, who says, I saw a video of what appeared to be a Ukrainian Su-25 claiming to shoot down a Russian aircraft on Twitter. I don't know if you guys saw it, but do Su-25s have air-to-air weapons?
And I thank you so much for the support, Robert Massey III, and also welcome back. You are a Discord, well, not Discord, a Lee Spring Army veteran. You have been around forever, and I'm glad to have you back, and thank you so much for the support. Now, to answer that question, Su-25 can shoot down enemy aircraft. They carry a very limited armament, some of them do, although it's an optional armament, of air-to-air missiles. Mostly of the R-60 variant. I can actually show you some of those right here. Su-25 carrying AA missiles. So let's go to images. And if I can find it for you. Very grainy image right here. So I'm going to try and find you a better one, so that way we can see it a little bit more. Come on now. Work with me. Walk with me. Oh, wow, that's a really cool Ukrainian one. So moving on. I'm trying to find one with any kind of armament attached. It looks like they've stripped them bare in all of these pictures. But they have nothing on the pylons. Are you kidding me? Okay, hang on. I'm going to have to go up to this picture and then go to where it's from. Alright, so it's going to be a little grainy, but you can see right there on the very edges of the wingtips, on the very last pylon, are R-60s. They could be R-60MKs or some other variant of the R-60, but they can carry air-to-air missiles, just a very limited amount of them. These things are not dogfighters by any means. They are close air support aircraft through and through. They were designed for that job, and they can't really do anything else all too well. The A-10 Warthog can also carry air-to-air missiles as well. If we look at it,
A-10 time.
Yeah, with AIM-9s, you can actually see that while this thing, and everyone knows the A-10 all around the world, is truly a close air support aircraft, you can see right there 2 AIM-9Ls on its pylons, which does mean that in certain circumstances, this thing can fight other aircraft. And also, according to War Games, man, now this is the most interesting thing about the A-10. And a U.S. A-10 Warthog from an Air National Guard went up against a Dutch F-16 and won several engagements against it in dogfighting.
Interesting.
And you know why that's the case?
Why is that?
The A-10 is so slow, and due to its massive wing profile, it can get such a massive amount of lift in such a fast turn rate because of it, that the A-10 can turn tighter turns than an F-16 because it's flying slower and it can just do it. And it also doesn't pull a massive amount of G's as well, so it's less strenuous on the pilot to engage in very sharp maneuvers inside of a dogfight.
Interesting.
But the real fact of the matter is that it most likely would never get in a dogfight. It would be destroyed beyond visual range from an air-to-air missile. But if it ever did get in a dogfight, this thing would actually dominate. At least based off of the War Games, although it still did get destroyed by the F-16 every once in a while, at least in the War Game simulation.
Just every once in a while it got destroyed.
It's okay. Just every once in a while, but still, I mean, like, that's a huge testament that this thing can even stand to survive a single dogfight against a purpose-built dogfighting aircraft. So all close air support aircraft like the Su-25, in a way, can fight air-to-air. It's just that they're not really made for it. And they can sometimes succeed at it, like that Su-25 you're talking about, although I didn't see the video. So with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well, Robert Massey III, and thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I saw East Coast CEO saying in the live chat, everyone is waiting for Matt's Monday videos, and my video is still in the works. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and put a deadline on myself so I don't push it off any further. It's not going to be this Monday that it comes out, but it will be the next Monday. So I am working on it in the background. I got a really, really good like script going for it, a whole like music scheme in the background. It's going to be really cool. I think you're going to like it. Hopefully so. But it's going to be on a very interesting topic. Some of you have already heard it already, but I'll leave the rest of y'all guessing a little bit. It'll be a surprise. But anyways, up to our next super chat, we have a very generous $100 donation from Susan G, who says, I pay for YouTube Premium so I don't see ads. Would you still get paid for ads that I don't see? I'm looking forward to your Monday videos when you can do them.
And I thank you so much for the support, Susan G. It helps us out a massive deal, and that kind of support helps this channel to keep on running. And so to answer that question, if you have YouTube Premium, we do get paid AdSense for you watching our videos. If we don't have ads turned on, we don't get anything, even if you have YouTube Premium. But when we do have ads running, we do make a small amount off of your YouTube Premium membership. But when I say small, it's incredibly small. I think it's about a cent per viewer. So it's not really a huge amount. You know, you would have to have thousands of premium viewers watching the watching a video to just make. Let me actually do the math on that. 1 cent times like $10. So it's not really a massive amount, but we still do make something off of it. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support, Susan G. And thank you so much for helping out this channel. You've been around for quite some while and helping us to keep this thing running. And I've got to say thank you, because that support really does help us out a lot, and it helps us to keep running this channel until this war ends. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we were able to answer that question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right, and next up, we have a $5 super chat from the squad guy, who says, me again. I explained bad yesterday. Russia operates a fleet of those Italian Iveco LMVs, around 200 of them. I still find it odd they'd use NATO kit.
And thank you so much for the support, squad guy. And also, thank you for clarifying that earlier. We actually had a little bit of confusion with that last night, but we did get it cleared up. And also, it is kind of odd to add to that they are using Western-made vehicles. It's not really that odd, because the Russians... well, really, I got to be honest, a lot of former communist nations, or currently communist nations, they really just get by copying other nations' stuff. So like the Chinese, you know, we could go on forever about them, and what they're doing right now. But going back to Russia, it's not really that out of the norm. But at the same time, it is kind of a little bit weird to see them using NATO, well, Italian-made vehicles in their army and have a fleet of 200 of these things. And so with that, I thank you for the support, and I would have to agree with you. It is kind of odd to see that, but at the same time, the Russian army isn't really first rate, and so they have to get whatever they can. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support.
And next up, we have a $5 super chat from Mackenzie Valentine, who says, where are the Mark 6 patrol boats Ukraine received from the U.S.? Perhaps they will start playing more of a role now patrolling the rivers.
Great question. And the Mark 6 patrol boats, I haven't seen them. Let me pull them up just to make sure. Mark 6 patrol boat. I haven't seen these, to be honest with you. I don't know where they are. I don't know if they ever got there. But I have never seen a physical existence of one of these in Ukraine. It may just be that there are no videos of their existence, but they're there. I can't really go into that much. I'm honestly going to have to declare ignorance on whether they're there or not. But one thing I can say is that these could help out a little, but they would still be vulnerable to artillery strikes, because crazily enough, the Ukrainians did damage a ship earlier on in the war. I believe it was the Vasily Baikov with an MLRS. Of course, it didn't sink. That was a little bit of misreporting at the time. When we came out with that news that day, we said that the Vasily Baikov had sank, but apparently it was just decently damaged, moderately damaged, or at least a sister ship of the class was. And then it got limped back to port, got repaired, and is now back at sea, and it hasn't been destroyed since. But going off of that, I haven't heard about these boats. They could do a little bit of help, a little bit of support with a landing party across the Dnipro reservoir, but one has to think, how hard would it be, you know, because we have to see the weight of this boat. Is it even possible to transport this thing across the ground, or does it have to be sailed to Ukraine? So this thing is 72 tons. So putting this onto a trailer and transporting it would be a daunting task. It would probably be fairly difficult to do. So, with that in mind, also I like the little plexiglass like yacht thing that they put on top of the boat, man. Do you see that right there?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Is
like
that plexiglass for real?
I think it is. I think it's like one of those like plastic tarp things you put over your yacht whenever you're sailing it around, you know?
Yeah, I think it looks like it. Also, what is that like in front of it? Is that a machine gun with a camera on it?
That is an autocannon. I don't know what kind. Let's see what it is. It is a 25 millimeter chain gun.
Interesting.
So really, it's actually the same caliber as an M3A3 Bradley's turret gun is, which is a Bushmaster 25 millimeter. But I think it would be pretty difficult.
That I gotta say, it's a pretty cool looking boat. It looks like one of those boats, you know, that like can flip over and then it rights itself again. It looks like
Yeah.
that kind of like design.
Yeah, I mean, like, they probably thought of that, but at the same time, with how it's kind of set up, I don't think they're expecting it to do that, but it still does look like that. I agree with you entirely. And also, I like the little cab they got in the back. You know, it looks like a... Honestly, this thing kind of looks like a boat you could take out on a day trip. But anyways, moving on from that side shoot and back to answering the question, it's pretty interesting boat. I don't think it would be easy to get it there, and there's no way to sail it to Ukraine and then sell it up the Dnipro River because it would have to pass the Novokakhovka Dam, which is still Russian controlled. So unfortunately, I haven't heard of them, and I haven't heard of any kind of activity involving them. But I do think they would serve a little bit of help with the Ukrainians conducting any kind of activities on the river. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support and an interesting observation as well.
All right, and moving on to our next super chat, we have one from Jason Smith, who puts in a $20 donation and says, "Great job, guys, and keep up the great work."
And thank you so much for the support, Jason Smith. And we actually just had a Jonathan Smith come through. Are y'all related? It's just kidding. But thank you so much once again for the support, Jason Smith. It helps us out a whole load. And I thank you so much for the kind words as well. It means a lot to us that people send kind words our way all the time and help to support this channel as well. Because without y'all, this wouldn't be possible. And so thank you so much once again for being a Lee Spring Army member and helping us to keep this thing rolling for as long as we've been able to. We've been able to run this stream 242 days off of viewer support. And so it's viewers like you, Jason Smith, who have helped us to be able to do this. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And, you know, honestly, Enforcer, hopefully this doesn't sound like, you know, like we're getting too big of a head on ourselves, but I like the idea of crowd-funded news. That seems to be the way to go, especially with, like, the, you know, the mainstream news is getting so biased. You're not really sure what to believe. And also, you got to be cautious of what you're looking at, you know, on social media and YouTube, too. But I like the idea of being able to, like, sort through all the videos ourselves and sort of present it in a, I guess, well, I won't say unbiased because we are biased toward Ukraine, but I like the format personally. I think it's pretty cool.
I like the format. I love it because here's another thing that's great about it. Anyone can watch this news and they don't have to contribute even their time. Like they don't have to contribute their time to watch an ad, and they don't have to contribute a single cent if they just want to get on here and watch it and feel no pressure. They can just sit down and watch this stream and just enjoy it. And if you do enjoy it and you want to keep it going, you can support it, but you don't have to. That's unlike other places where you have to, like with New York Times, like their website, you have to pay for a subscription to read a news article. Like, I don't know about y'all, but I feel like that's just like jacked up with news these days. Like, it's too much. It's not really about the reporting anymore, and it's more about how can we suck every cent out of you that we can, possibly. And I don't like that. And I like the way we run it. You know, of course, I'm kind of biased because that is the setup we run with. But I love how people can just watch this without having to contribute even 15 seconds of their time to watch an ad. And if people want to support it and keep it running, they can. And so with that, I thank everyone so much once again for supporting this stream. It's only been possible because of y'all, and that says a lot about the generosity and the kindness of all of our viewers, our channel members, and the Lee Spring Army members who help this thing to keep on running. And so with that, thank you to all of y'all so much once again. And of course, I hope y'all enjoyed this format as well, because we've been running it like this for 242 days, and I don't think we will ever run it any other way. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have let's see here. I saw one more. We have a $15 super chat from Gucci the Pug, who says Russian military vehicles shot civilians with French optical equipment, contracted deals before the war, ? And should this be investigated? orcs were able to do this more accurately due to that help.
And I thank you so much for the support, Gucci the Pug, and a very interesting question. More of a question of morality. Should that French company be held liable for selling that equipment to the Russians? And if that is the case, if that is to be true, that they were held liable, then the French government would also have to be held liable as well. Because the French government approves who these companies can sell to in terms of, I guess you could say, foreign deals, and the French government signed off on that. And so I would have to say, probably not, because there's a lot of armed companies that sell to all kinds of nations around the world, and usually the idea is that it probably won't ever be used. But now that it is being used, it's a little it's unfortunate, but I just have to really say that that's just a way of war. And also, that sight company that makes those sights makes the sights for French tanks as well. And so we want to screw over that company severely to where the French go, hey, it's time to make it a Leclerc, and then they go to the factory that made the sights for the Leclerc, and it got shut down because they got bankrupted. And that could come back to hurt France terribly and their military industry heavily. And also, speaking of which, as a side note on that, Gucci the Pug, this is a huge rabbit hole, but I don't know if any of y'all have seen the recent Tom Scott video. Have you, Matthew, where he was in the Swiss Military Museum and he got to be in the tank simulator?
I don't think so, but I need to watch that, though. I like watching him go into the simulators. It's always hilarious.
That was so freaking cool. The Swiss were so ahead of their time. They made this simulator. It was like a massive diorama, like one that I've made before, if you remember that, Matthew. Like with little roads and little trees. And they had this giant camera, and on the bottom of it was this little sled. It was like a half-inch long, and it pivoted with the ground. And this thing, like the sled, had a little tiny micro camera on top of it that puts you into perspective of, instead of just looking down at the diorama, you were in it. Like you were like sitting there with the tank on that diorama. They would sit you down in like this driver's cockpit that had giant hydraulic lifts under it. And as you would drive the simulator, the little camera would move around the diorama, and the sled on the bottom of it would adjust the hydraulic lifts for the terrain, so you would feel like going over rocks and bumps and logs and going up hills and down hills and shifting gears. It was super cool. And to think that that was made in the 70s with really no computer technology whatsoever was incredibly cool to see. And a huge credit to Swiss engineering. And so with that, I hope that interested you, Matthew. You were just blown away. You were completely in silence. And of course, thank you so much once again for the support, Gucci Pug. Now, I have to say, are you related to Gucci Gang? But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. And we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $15 super chat from Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin, who says, if you want more kind words, please no more face reveals. Man! Is that a roast or what?
Dang. Well, I thank you for the support, Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin. And I think that just took me off of my high tonight. And so with that, thank you for the support. And we are on to the next one. But of course, I know you're kidding, because Matthew had a huge fan base, and people were like, man, Matthew looks like Ferris Bueller. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Mr. Awesome Noob, who says, Russia's new anthem. And Enforcer, are you seeing that on the iPad?
Yes, I do. I don't know what kind of lyric do
you know, like, what tune that goes to?
I don't know. I got to be honest with you. I don't know the song.
Well, I'll read it off like a robot anyways. And I ran so far away. I just ran. I ran all day and all night. I couldn't get away.
Wait a minute, hang on. We really got to read that like an actual robot. And I ran so far away. You know, like those
That's
British...
like something Duncan would have had you say.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, it was. But with that...
Where's Duncan? He's already gotten off for the night.
Oh, man. And, of course... Thank you so much for the support, Mr. Awesome Noob. And I think that's an interesting idea. Don't know the exact lyrics to it. Well, I do know the exact lyrics to it, but I don't know the tune to it. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again, Mr. Awesome Noob.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from AJS9437, who says, I'm behind in the stream, but in regards to the suppressed AKS-74 video, it sounds a lot like my father's M1A1 carbine.
You know, I gotta say, never thought about it that way, but it does sound a lot like an M1A1 carbine, doesn't it? Or carbine. You know, because everyone says carbine, carbine. I think it's just a dialect thing. It just depends on where you're from. Also, Matty, dang, you're having to really take out those bots tonight. Jeez. That's like our
Wait a minute, I unhit it. Let me see why that happened.
Let me go put
There
it
we
down.
go.
Execute it.
I got it.
Get it. Thank you. So, getting back to this. That's actually an interesting observation. I would have to agree with you. It does kind of sound a lot like an M1A1 carbine, which is kind of weird, and I would have no reason why the similarity would be that uncanny. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, AJS9437. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
And, you know, I don't know what triggers the cam bot to show up, but that's the third time tonight it's tried to get in here. So it's very persistent. But it's like, what happened to it in the meantime? It's been gone for like a month, and all of a sudden it pops back up, and it's like, you know, more determined than ever. It's like, come on, man. Come on, man.
Come on, man. And so
Yes.
we're on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Carl S., who says, do you think Ukraine could use barrage balloons to stop the drones or cruise missiles?
You're telling me that we're supposed to fill... I'm here, Matthew. I'm here. I was just taking a pause for dramatic effect. But you're telling me that we need to fill a large balloon with helium attached to a string, connect it to the ground, and put them up all over a city to stop aircraft and drones from flying over it? I would have to tell you, that's actually a pretty smart idea. I know that sounded like I was about to land blast you, but honestly, I think that's about as best an idea as there has been so far about stopping these drones from flying over these Ukrainian cities. So honestly, I would have to say, I think it is a good idea, and it should be worth an attempt at least. And if it doesn't turn out to be a good idea, then there was really no harm done. But if it turns out to be a good idea, then lives were saved. And so with that, I thank you for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Preston Ringrose, who puts in 5 turtle emojis.
Well, I thank you so much for the support, Preston Ringrose, and I love how, Matthew, you wrote down on the spreadsheet, it says 5 turtle emojis, and it has the turtles.
You know, that's actually funny, because Preston actually wrote that down for me.
Really?
Yes, I didn't actually do that.
Because I was looking at it, I was like, hey, that's funny. He wrote it down so that I'd see it. But with that, I thank you so much for the support, Preston Ringrose, and I thank you so much for giving us 5 turtle emojis. That means a lot to us, and of course, thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from the B Knight 3, who says, have you heard the story of Vasil, the war dog? All the war dogs of this war are exceptional examples of man's best friend and deserve stakes and medals.
And thank you so much for the support, the BK Knight. Also wait a minute, the B Knight 3, I don't think it's BK Knight. I think it's...
I say BK Knight some night, and then I say the B Knight other night. So he's like kind of gotten used to me butchering his name at this point, I think.
Well, I thank you for the support nonetheless. And to address it, I have not heard the story of Vasily the war dog. I think the best story I've ever heard was Petron, the bomb sniffing dog, which he's almost faded away into celebrityship in Ukraine. Like, he's still touring around over there and teaching kids about safety and all kinds of stuff, but we don't really hear about little Patron anymore, and I wish we did. He was a really cute little dog. But anyways, moving on from that, I would have to say that all dogs in this war so far have proven themselves to be incredibly loyal, incredibly brave, and incredibly sweet. And I would have to say that all of them deserve steak dinners on the house because they are great dogs. I love dogs. I have 2 corgis, and the 2 corgis are the most precious corgis. Actually, and now this is going to make people say, put the Patreon up, but we actually posted a picture of Mr. Corgi on the Patreon a while ago. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again, B-Knight, for the support.
All right, and up next, a big shout out to Redwood Beard and Gucci the Pug once again for each putting in a $5 donation without a comment. And thank you very much to both of you for that support. And Gucci and also Redwood have been around for a very long time. Just want to mention that as well. And thank you for sticking with us. And let's see here. Up next, we have a $5 super chat from Emerald Salichul, who says, Matt's voice is rad. Keep it up, boys.
And thank you so much for the support, Emerald Celestial. And also, Matt's voice is red. And so,
Like that, put on that, like, energy drink commercial voice.
Matt's voice is red.
Yes.
Yeah. Coming soon to theaters near you. But I thank you so much for the support, Emerald Celestial, because I have to agree, Matt has a pretty good voice for the videos, and I hope y'all enjoyed the next one he's coming out with this upcoming Monday, guys. It's this upcoming Monday. I'm just kidding with y'all. It's not. It's going to be the next one, and I'm just pulling y'all's chain. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Also, Matthew, a bot this late? Oh, country kind of guy. Sad. Put him down, Matthew. And so with that, we're on to the next one, but thank you so much once again for the support, Emerald.
All right. And Enforcer, you see the next one, don't you?
Yes, I do.
All right.
I'm just like.
Can I say that?
Yeah, I think you can. I don't think it'll be a big deal.
All right. So up next, we have a $5 super chat from D's Nuts, who says,
Got
amazing
him.
work. He says, amazing work. I love unwinding my nights to this channel. Keep bringing the energy. I love it. Slav Ukraine.
Thank you so much for the support. And I'm glad that you do enjoy the energy as well. Some people actually have been taken aback by the energy that we put in on this channel. And I got to say why. I mean, like, that's one thing I have not understood, Matty. I don't know about you, but it doesn't make sense to me that people want to hear, like, you know, someone talk like this throughout a whole stream, you know, like where it's just like, oh man, oh gee, you know. Like,
It seems like it'd get boring.
it seems to me like it would. So I've kept that in mind throughout the entire war so far, because one thing I know is that people want to hear the news. At the same time, you don't want to get bored to death either. That's what stops a lot of people from watching the news, is that it's presented in such a boring way. And so I want to make sure that we cover the news accurately, but I also want to make sure that it's funny, that it's interesting, that it's worthwhile to watch. And I'm glad that we've been able to do that so far, at least in your opinion, Deez. Is it okay if I call you Yeezy? Good. I was just kidding with you. But I'm glad that you have enjoyed it so far, because I always want to make sure that people can get on this channel and unwind to this, and also hear the news and also enjoy it at the same time without having to absorb it like some kind of a fish oil. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat once more from Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin. He says, of course I was joking. That's for other people who got offended. You should see the way I look. Even the uglies fight over me. Something like, you can have him, I don't want him.
And thank you so much for the support, Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin. And I understood it was a joke completely. I was just kidding. It didn't take me off my high. You've been around supporting this channel for a long time, and I knew you were just joshing with us and pulling our chain. But I did see some people. Well, actually, it wasn't some. It was actually like the whole live chat. Like, I don't know if you saw it, Randy, but they're like, "That was so rude." Like,
I was honestly, like, for a minute wondering if that was like a serious comment or not. I was sitting there thinking, I don't know if this is like a real roast or like a joke.
But of course, I thank you so much for the support, Putin will hang in the middle of Kremlin. I completely get it was a joke on my end. And also, don't say that about yourself. Now, I say that about myself on occasion. I find it, I'll be honest with y'all here. I'm going to have a real talk moment with all y'all. I find it very hard I find it really hard to balance the self-depreciating humor or the self-deprecating humor versus doing what people on the live chat say, because a lot of people on the live chat are like, man, you're like the best. And so I feel like pressure to say things like, well, you know, I've largely gotten everything right. But at the same time, I'm a very pessimistic person about myself. And so usually my inclination is to make deprecating jokes about myself, like I don't look good, or I don't know what I'm talking about, or I don't have any sense. And so, you know, in humor, of course, you know, I balance those things out. You know, I'm just neutral. I'm there. You know, it's not great or negative, but I find it really hard to balance the two. So when you throw in a comment like that, it's honestly feeding into my natural instinct, which is like, yeah, I probably do. I mean, like, you know, I look in a mirror and I turn people into stone. But of course, I thank you for the support. Don't say that about yourself. Now, while I will say that about myself, don't say that about yourself. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and up next, let's see here. We have a $10 super chat from Lucy P, who says, both of you make my nights. I hate Mondays when you're not on, but I'm looking forward to Matthew's video. Love the energy you both have, and definitely not boring. Slava Ukraine, and LSA.
And thank you for the support, Lucy P. And I love how everyone in the super chats tonight, Matthew, is just putting more and more pressure on you to come out with one on Monday. Oh,
yes,
man.
but I got to have that pressure though, because like I have a whole vision for how the video is going to turn out, but I'm like swamped with other stuff in the background as well. So I got to like kick myself in the butt to go ahead and make it.
And that's true. I understand. One thing that a lot of people don't know, and I guess this is just like a YouTuber gripe, but editing videos is a pain. I just don't know.
It takes
why.
a long time.
It takes such a long time. Like y'all will watch a 5-minute video, and believe it or not, probably like 8 to 10 hours of work went into 5 minutes. Like, it's unbelievable sometimes, and I know why a lot of YouTube channels eventually just go and start hiring editors to do these videos, like the actual legwork for them, is because it's just so you know what I mean? So I thank you so much for the support, Lucy P. Matthew is still working on the video. It will come out next Monday, not this one. But I'm looking forward to it too. Matthew set the bar last time for a very interesting and funny video. And I gotta say, I'm looking forward to the next one as well. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. And I also love that you enjoy the energy as well. Because, like, man, you know, like, I have to say, it's very interesting because every once in a while I go over, and you know, and recently there was a little bit of a fracas with another YouTube channel that mistook us. They thought we were talking about them and we were talking about someone else. And because of that, I went over there and watched that specific part of the video. And I actually saw, like, this is kind of funny. I don't know if you saw it or watched the video, Matthew, but I actually saw that a lot of the people who have been executed in this live chat were over there. And I was like, what?
Yes, I have noticed.
Yeah, and so they were saying all these things like, man, I can't stand how energetic he is. And I was like, but I thought that was what made this channel watchable. You know, like, but, so, you know, that was something I looked at and I was like, man, and then, you know, I remember I was like, well, you know, they got into like fights or cussed us out in the live chat, so you know that's why they're not here. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Lucy P. I'm glad that you did enjoy the energy, and I thank you so much for enjoying that we are not boring. We try and make sure that we are covering the news as interestingly as possible. I'm glad that you do enjoy it, and so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And I see we have some editors in the chat, so y'all know how long it takes to edit these videos. That 5-minute long video that I put out about the nuclear missiles, that actually took me about 6 to 7 hours to make and edit that video, just for 5 minutes. And it really wasn't like a complex visual video. It was more of just research and also picking out the audio and putting the pictures into it. If y'all notice, it was kind of like a PowerPoint style presentation, and it's going to be a little bit of a different production quality in the next one. But I kind of like the simplistic format. It's not necessarily easier to make, but it's pretty like interesting, kind of quirky.
Also, real quick,
but anyways,
Matthew, before we move on here, I got to answer 2 live chat questions to put something together because Kravik Alexander asked, "Is Andrew going to do solo vids too?" And then someone else asked, and let me find them real quick. Richard Roddy said, Matthew's next video comes out on October 31st. And to answer the first question, yes, I am making my own videos here in the future. And also, both of our videos, I'm actually planning on making one in the background as well, will be coming out on October 31st not at the same time, we will actually stagger them, but I'm planning on making a Halloween special, so we'll be covering something a little bit more dark on my video that will be in the Halloween spirit, but also in the premise of war, so I need to find a topic and make a video. I'm thinking, Matthew, that we will run, because you have a crowd that's anticipating your video, so I think we'll run yours, well, actually, I forgot this too, Matthew. I don't know if we're still going with this plan, but we're just uploading them as normal videos that day.
And that's something I want to ask the viewers too. Do y'all like the premieres where you can chat on them, or do you want like the video just to like pop up on the channel and there it is?
That's actually I might want to run a poll on that, honestly.
Yeah, that's actually a good poll question, actually.
But I am planning on making a video. As far as we are planning in the background right now, they are going to be uploaded not as premieres, but as normal videos. But if y'all say different, we may change our mind on Matthew's video. I think I'll still make mine a normal one. So mine will most likely be put up in the middle of the day on Monday, and Matthew's video will be put up probably, if it's a premiere, at 10 p.m. Eastern time, like it's a stream, although it'll only be 5 minutes long, so keep that in mind. It will be a very limited window to catch that video. And then also, mine will be on something Halloween related. Not really like, you know, like pumpkins or skeletons or anything, but something a little bit more morbid and a little bit more dark, just because it's in the interests of the season. And so with that, I hope that does address those two questions, and we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Emerald Celestial once again, who says, "You both have rad voices and you both look fine. Don't let the trolls get you down. You're both so polite and well-spoken, and Slava Ukraine."
And thank you so much for the support, Emerald Celestial. Hang on, everyone. I just saw... Oh, man. Hang on. I can't even tell you what I saw right now on stream, Matthew, but someone just gave me the video idea for Halloween, so give me just a second. I got to write that down as a reminder.
Wow, he's taking somebody's idea and putting it right down on the notepad now.
I saw that, and I was like, that's it. That's it right there. It hit all the marks. Hang on. I can't even say this out loud because I want this one to be a surprise, but I want you to know, random viewer, and I think I know who you are. You just gave me the idea for the video. I thank you so much for that. That is really cool. So let me put down a date and a time for that. So I need to start working on that on probably like Tuesday.
And then Forster's going to spend a little moment here setting his calendar on his dates real quick.
Yes, I have to. That was way too good. I'll tell you about it after stream, Matthew, but that was a genius idea. And and also some people are like, me? No. I think the guy knows. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. Wait a minute, hang on. Wait. I forgot. We didn't address Emerald Celestial's question. Thank you for enjoying the stream and also enjoying our voices. I know that mine is more high-pitched. I make it that way deliberately. But still, even naturally, my voice is a little bit more higher-pitched than Matthew's. Matthew goes around and he talks in a monotone voice. And we all, we actually have a kind of like a running joke around this house that whenever Matthew talks, it is just flat, like a note. I also do that as well. I talk like this normally, so whenever I talk, I just sit there in a monotone voice and I talk like this to people on and on and on, and it kind of wears them out, and they're kind of like, hey, can you stop that? And then I'm like, no, I can't, because, you know, I talk like this for 3.5 hours a night. And so it is kind of a little tiresome on the vocal cords to do that. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support and also saying so many kind things about us. It means a lot. And I thank you so much for enjoying both Matthew and me and the channel as well, and helping us to keep this thing going. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $60 super chat from Denise Riches, and thank you very much for that very generous support, Denise. She says, "Definitely not boring. My husband heard me listening today and asked who you were, and was astounded that you are doing all the research and hosting in and around your studies."
And thank you so much for the support, Denise. And also, thank you for the kind words as well. That's actually really cool to hear such kind compliments from both you and your husband. And oh man, that's actually a really nice one. And you were standing that you're doing all the research and hosting around your studies. That is something that I have been doing. Luckily, the studies did drop off here for a little bit, but then again, we've now found something else to occupy our time with after stream. So it's taking up a little bit of time back there. But I thank you so much for the support, Denise, and also that is true. You know, and that's also been from what I saw. Watching that video that I was talking about a little bit earlier, you know, about, and you know, and I think everyone knows about it at this point because it's been brought up on this channel a little bit, about Mercado mistaking us talking about him. We weren't talking about him, we were talking about another channel, but I still had to go over there and see it to see what happened. And I think it looks like the whole entire crux of the point that he thought we were talking about him is that Starsky had been on his channel. But Starsky had also been on this other person's channel as well within the course of a few days. We're still not going to give out the name of who this channel was. That message was supposed to be just directly for that person who runs the channel. So, you know, anyways, we're going to move on from that. But anyways, I do thank you so much for enjoying. That was something else that a lot of people hold against me, is that I am a college student and 20 years old. I don't really feel like that's too much of an inhibitor, you know, because it's like, if you are generally getting things right and you have a decent historical base to work off of, I don't really think it should matter if you're in college or 20, because, I mean, like, honestly, think about it. Marquis de Lafayette was around 20 years old when he came to America and helped to form the U.S. Army, the Continental Army, into what it was in the Revolutionary War. Napoleon Bonaparte started to rise through the ranks in his early 20s, and then he became one of the most revered military commanders of the modern age. You know, and so, and I'm not saying that I'm a Marquis de Lafayette or a Napoleon, but it's so silly to hold against someone their age, and act like just because of their age alone, they don't know what they're talking about. I never go and discredit anyone unless if they call themselves an expert. Then I usually have some disdain, because I feel like there is really no such thing as an expert in this category. Really, anyone can know what they're talking about as long as they have a decent base of knowledge. But that's always something that's been interesting to me, and that's something I saw a lot from some people that we had executed and were over there, is that they held that against me. And so I thank you so much for enjoying that and taking that as a positive mark on this channel, because I do this in the middle of doing college. And so that, thank you so much once again for the support. It really does mean a lot to us. And thank you for the kind words from both you and your husband for enjoying this channel and also respecting the grind. And so that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Final Countdown, who says, Enforcer Matt, I think you would do well on Cougar Cruise. Is that new ride at Walt Disney World or something?
Let me pull it up on a second screen.
Oh, no. No, I'm just playing. That's a joke. That's a joke. That's not a ride at Walt Disney World.
It ain't.
No, it's not.
It's not. I thank you for the support. I don't know if I want to go there. It's so that we're on to the next one, and thank you once again.
I can't even. But anyways, up next we have a $2 super chat from Vitaly Koshin, who says "Davay" means "come on" in Ukrainian, Slava Ukraine.
And thank you for the support. And also, I'm still kind of reeling over what Final Countdown said. I pulled that up and saw it. I was like, but I thank you so much for the support, Vitaly, and I thank you so much for clarifying that as well. Divide does mean come on. I kind of put divide in the same kind of category as giddy up or andale. It's kind of like in that same group of words. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support and also clarifying that for us as well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
That Cambot's back for the 4th time tonight.
It's back.
Let me go ahead and
Frank, did you bring that one with you? Because it came with him.
Frank. But anyways, while we're on Frank's super chat, he puts in a 200 NOK donation. And thank you very much for that. I'm not sure what NOK is. I think it's Norwegian kroner, is it?
Yes, it is. It's a Norwegian kroner. So he is from the land of Norway. A very interesting and beautiful land and a very interesting history. And of course, I have to say this every time I talk about Norway. The first thing that comes up about Norwegian history is Vikings. Throw it out the window. I find Norwegian history to be interesting beyond the 1600s. Also, that kind of ties in with Swedish and Danish history as well. They're kind of like a trifecta in that regard during that period in history. But I still have to say, I love the Norwegian history from 1600 onwards. And also Swedish history, too. They're very beautiful countries with very interesting and neat people. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Frank, and also for helping to keep this channel running. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But I still thank you so much once again for the support and helping us to keep this thing going.
All right, and up next we have a $2 super chat from Ken Weber, who says 101st Air Assault Division no longer airborne. So they're grounded, apparently.
Grounded. Yeah, let's pull that up. 101st Airborne. Is it airborne? Is a light... What? Oh, wait a minute, hang on. It's a light infantry division that specializes in air assault operations. So I'm guessing what people mean by it not being airborne anymore is that they don't paradrop or parachute out of a aircraft. They use helicopters now because they still use some kind of air assault tactics, which means they have to be using something that's airborne, like a helicopter. But are y'all really...
Oh, and Enforcer, we're also running extremely late. I just looked at the time.
We are, but what is time, Matthew? Time is nothing more than a construct of man. I'm kidding. I know what you mean. We're going to try and speed through this. But hang on. I'm trying to get down. Oh, my God. Wow. They wrote an entire essay on this. Oh, man, I'm sorry. I don't think we'll be able to find the answer to, but I'll take your word for it. And I hate to hear that because that kind of takes away a little bit of their tradition. I also heard that the Army got rid of the Pathfinders, but we'll cover that another time. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $2 super chat from Gucci the Pug, who says, Enforcer Matt saying, no, don't look at it. And yes, I was panicking. I thought Enforcer was about to pull that up on the main screen. I didn't know what was about to pop up, so luckily he didn't. But anyways, thank you very much for the super chat. And also, we have a $12 donation from Splash Damage, who says, good morning, LSA. Do you know that Xi has removed the ex-China president? That reminds me of Hu Yaobing died 5th April 1989, and that student demonstration with the terrible ending on the 4th of May in 1989. Hashtag Tankman.
Man, we might get in trouble for that ending part right there.
What? What about that?
YouTube's a little sensitive about those kinds of things because, reasons.
That's just history.
It is just history, that's true, but YouTube has smacked people for that, so hopefully we don't get in trouble for that, but now that we've said it, there can't be any harm done. That is, it is.
Then you should have stopped me before then, Enforcer, before I said it.
Well, I wasn't actively reading that when I was reading something else from the live chat, so I didn't know that was in there. But with that, to address that question, well, that comment, I thank you, of course, for the support. And he did remove the ex-president today. In fact, we will show that video. I know we're pressed for time, Matthew, but I think you'll be interested in this one. President who removed. Can I find a video for y'all? So we'll use the one from Al Jazeera. Actually, they don't have a video. We will use the one from YouTube. All right, so the former.
Is this going to be copywritten?
Probably not. No, because we're using it for commentary purposes. So this is President Hu. He was the former president of China before Xi Jinping took charge, and he was known historically for stepping down and removing himself from all positions of power to make sure that his successors, Xi, would not be contested at all in terms of power in China. Today, Xi had him removed from the Chinese Communist Congress. And there he is being removed right there. But he stopped for a minute to talk to Xi, and Xi acted like he didn't really want to talk to him and kind of blew him off. And everyone else hardly tried to look at him. But a very interesting little event unfolded right there. And quite an embarrassment, considering that this was the closing ceremony of the party. And that has never really happened. In fact, it's a very choreographed closing ceremony. So a lot of people are assuming that that was done to entirely humiliate former President Hu. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. And it's very unfortunate to see that something like that happened to such a prominent figure of, I guess you could say, modern Chinese history. And I got to be honest with y'all, not talking about politics much, but Hu was a lot better than the current one. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and up next we have a $5 super chat from Richard Philpott, who says, your format is near genius. What I like about your energy is that it is remarkably disheartening to the pro-orcs.
And thank you so much for the support, Richard. And I also try and do that deliberately. And I also like to get a good... I get a lot of joy knowing that bots are seething here on this channel, and so I always like to make sure to harass them an undue amount, really, that's the best way to say it, so that way I can get the maximum pleasure out of their tears. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $2 super chat from Giuseppe D'Angelo, who says, keep up the great work and Slava Ukraine. And Giuseppe, thank you very much for the support and the kind words. We do appreciate it very much. We also have a $2 super chat from Gucci the Pug once again, who says Polish bison grass vodka Subroka is the best.
And I would have to give it a shot. I don't really drink, but maybe one day. And so that, thank you for the support, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Madison Music Teacher, who says, I heard the Russian ruble is strong again.
It's not. I can promise you it's not. And so with that, I thank you for the support, and we are on to the next one.
And for the final super chat of the night, we have a $2 donation once more from Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin, who says, great faces for the radio.
Oh man, he got us again. Oh man. Well, I thank you for the support, and I guess we'll just keep it like this. Also, that was another gripe. Just to list off the gripes. So he doesn't show his face. It's like, well, I focus more on the war. It's not a React channel. Like get with it. And so that I thank you for the support. And oh man, we got another one, Matthew. We got another one.
Okay. Up next, we have a $5 super chat from Philip Fixes, who says, Enforcer's own iPad fund, way more fluid question segment. It can't hurt to premiere your videos. Excuse me. Slava LSA, and you're gonna be a mogul.
A mogul? I would rather not be a mongrel. And I thank you for the support, Philip. And also, we are having some very big plans to try and expand this channel and grow it here in the future. Probably within the next couple of months, we're looking at kind of like a 5-year plan for our channel, although we're not really big into 5-year plans, more so into the indefinite plan, if you know what I mean. But of course, I thank you so much for enjoying the channel. And also, I would have to say this has made it a lot more fluid as well, because I can actually look down at y'all's questions and read them off whenever I need a reference. So, I don't know, Matthew, but if you're fine with this, we might want to make this a permanent part of the setup.
You mean you want to steal my iPad, in other words?
Yes. It makes it a lot better. And so that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Philip, and thank you so much for the kind words. And so with that, we've reached the end of tonight's Super Chats, and due to time reasons, we'll only be able to address 3 live chats, and then we'll be rounding out tonight's stream. I'm sorry, just in case if you are a new viewer, we usually do answer a lot more than 3. We usually answer 10 to 15 of them. But due to time reasons tonight and how many Super Chats there were and how long it took to answer them, we can only address 3 because we're going way over time at this point, and the stream is now 3.5 hours long. And so with that, what do we got for the first one, Matthew?
All right, and first up, we have to recognize our Morse code decoders, and it's Cife and Mark Hodges, and they say the Morse code says ending move is to a land like they are amputations.
And I thank you for deciphering the Morse code, and ding, 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 that is correct. It is leaving land, just ending your hold on the land, is like amputating yourself in military terms, and that's definitely not a good move for the long run. And so with that, I hope that does address that Morse code, and we are on to the next one. And now, starting now, we will be answering 3 questions from the live chat.
All right, and this one goes to Lord Loxy, who says, can you bring up the topic of the retreat as a possible trap by the Russians? I am getting a bit concerned about the actuality of the dam breaking.
So that has been something that we did cover a little bit earlier on stream. The dam, the whole entire thing could be a ruse to try and destroy a decent amount of the Ukrainian army by rupturing the dam. But at that point, I feel that the Ukrainians most likely will have prepared for that, and there won't be a lot of soldiers on the banks anyways. And so if there was a flood, the majority of Ukrainian soldiers that would most likely be in Kherson could probably evacuate before the flood really made it to them. And so with that, I hope that addresses that fairly quickly. We are a little bit pressed for time. I would go into that a little bit more. But I hope that does address the comment well. And it is a good point. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a question from Ryan Christie, who says, Enforcer, is there any evidence of the ejection system being used in the Ka-52, or is it Russian BS?
There is. We actually watched a video earlier of a Ka-52 being shot down on this channel, and we watched the pilot eject from the helicopter. So it can happen. It does work. It's just that there's very few times that it's actually usable. And I think that guy ejected out of the helicopter and then just parachuted down into the burning wreck of it and then just burned. So with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And the lucky last viewer that threw in the lucky last question of the night is Digifix, who says, thoughts on the retreat from Kherson as being a trap to lure Ukraine into a massive IED zone.
I would have to say, it's most likely not the case. I believe the Russians are giving up land because they know that it's not strategically viable to hold it anymore. There's no way to supply those troops. But there is a possibility that they could be luring the Ukrainians into a trap. It's just that, however, everyone has always expected that whenever the Russians lose ground in this war, that it is some kind of trap. That was even said when the Ukrainians broke through near Balaklia and the Russians started bleeding ground every single day. Everyone was saying, it's a trap, it's a trap. And then it didn't turn out to be a trap. It just turned out that the Russian forces had collapsed there and they were losing ground like no tomorrow. And so, in my opinion, I would have to say this is most likely falling under the same circumstances. I think that they are probably just giving up the ground just because they can't hold it anymore. And the chances of them having the supplies or the ability to set up a whole load of IEDs and start killing off Ukrainian soldiers with them, I feel like that's highly unlikely, but it's not out of the realm of impossibility. And so with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. And it looks like, according to those polls, Matthew, it is a 59 and 40, so a decent amount of them would like to have it as a premiere. But one thing I will let y'all know is that by premiering it, the video largely gets limited to being viewed by our subscribers only, and uploading them as a normal video will expose them to an even larger audience that could expand outside of our normal Lee Spring Army base.
And I hate that because I like seeing the chat, because I like seeing feedback like as the video is playing. Because some people are like, oh, this is great, and then some people are like, I don't really like it, and it lets me know like right then and there like how it's actually going.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, that's something that I like too. I love live chats, but at the same time, the bad thing, the downside with premieres is that they only get pushed to people who have subscribed, and even then, it's not everyone who's subscribed. It's only about a third of the people who subscribe to the channel. So it is a pretty tough move, because of course it's a lot more enjoyable for the viewers to have a premiere. Maybe, oh man, no, we can't do that, because we can't upload a premiere version of it and then a normal video version of it, because then it's just double dipping and you can't double dip the chip. So I mean, you know, we would either have to do a video or premiere, but it looks like 60% of y'all would like a premiere. But with that in mind, it is time to end tonight's stream. I thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure to cover this news, and I cannot believe that 4,244 of y'all are still watching. Actually, it just went up by about 20 people. That many of y'all are...
That's like a new high for like the end of the stream.
Yeah, it is. It's insane. 4,256 of y'all are watching 3 hours and 37 minutes and 5 seconds in. And I got to thank you all so much for watching. And if you are new to this channel and enjoyed both the news segment and the question segment, please make sure to subscribe, as we run these streams every single day of the week at 10 p.m. Eastern times, except for Mondays. We take that day off. We also run Sunday night fundraisers, which are used to help out Ukraine. We select a nonprofit of choice. All of the funds are raised through YouTube Give, an incredibly safe system. They will take 100% of your funds and donate it to the charity of choice. So if you put in $100 to Doctors Without Borders, $100 will be going directly to Doctors Without Borders, and then they use it from there. And so with that, I hope to see you all tomorrow for Sunday night's fundraiser, and thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure. Have a great night. Take care, stay safe, and sadly right now we don't have an outro anthem, but we will be working on that probably tomorrow if we have the time. And so with that, good night everyone, take care, and I'll see y'all then on Sunday. Slava Ukraini, and Slava the Lee Spring Army.